everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Saturday! Hopefully you guys are doing well. Thanks for your patience. Was just trying to get everybody input in terms of my client charts for this evening. If you're new to my channel, welcome. We're going to be doing live astrology readings this evening on the channel. We alternate, we go back and forth. Every other Saturday we switch between tarot and astrology. And we have eclipses that are still playing out. So we actually have an eclipse coming in hot on the 8th. We're going to have a lunar eclipse in Taurus. So usually we kind of have a free-for-all. You can ask really whatever you want, or we do synastry readings as well. But I just want to kind of let you guys know in general for today's session, whether you're somebody who's new or you're making a donation for reading or you're a level 3, we are only going to be taking a look at how the lunar eclipse is going to be playing out in your chart. We will not be looking at anything other than that. So no lunar returns this evening, nothing like that. I'm going to go through the chat really quick and get an idea of how many level 3 people we have. So if you are level 3, people like Tiara, Deanna, Paula, Stephanie, Steve, Emma, Nancy, and Jessica, if you would like to cash in for your monthly reading, you can. But like I said, we're only going to be talking about the eclipse. We're not going to be answering any questions, only because we're going to have a ton of people coming in asking questions. So if you're wondering how you can get a reading, there's a QR code right here. You can scan that QR code and it's going to take you to the PayPal where you can make a donation for your reading. Minimum donation is $50 for any question that you have in regards to the eclipse. Some of you guys already know your chart. Some of you guys have it hitting personal planets. So it's totally fine to kind of ask questions in terms of aspects or transits. And I hope you guys understand, and I appreciate your patience because these can be a little bit longer. So it took me longer to get all the charts in. So we'll be taking first level 3 subscribers, and then we're going to move on to the list. And I have a running list of people. I also just want to make a note. There was a couple people who actually sent in donations for the incorrect amount. So Ellie Smith and Katie Walker. I don't know if you guys are watching, but for you guys, just a heads up, I did refund you. So if you would like to get a reading, then you're gonna have to resubmit with the correct amount. So I apologize. I sent that back to you as soon as we could, as soon as I saw that it came in. What's up, Paula? I see you. If you are level 3, you can definitely get your reading. A couple things, guys. I cleared all of my charts, so I am gonna have to ask for those of you guys who are return members for your information again. Anybody who gets a reading, it's really important that you guys follow these steps. When you scan the QR code, it's gonna take you to PayPal. $50 minimum donation for a reading on what's gonna play out pertaining to the eclipse in your chart. You need to put your first name, and if you want to put your last name, you can, but you let me know your YouTube name. I need your exact time, date, and location. So I need to know the city, state, and country, the AM, PM hour, and I also need to know the city of birth. So let me get a heads up for some of the people who are going to be taking a look at. So, okay, cool. So we've got Stephanie, we've got Paula, and Deanna. Deanna, if I can get your info again, please. And it looks like we're also going to look at Tiara. So thank you for joining. I appreciate your guys' support. And if there's any other level 3 people here, please let me know and I'll get you in. Let me scroll up because I know we got some comments here. Okay. So let me go ahead and plug Stephanie's info in real quick. Actually, I'll probably plug all of you guys in just so that way we don't have to wait. 7393. There's so many charts in here. I had to clear it out. I do that every so often. And that was at 2:22 p.m. And let's see, where was that? Montclair, California. Okay, so we've got Stephanie saved. Let's put Paula's info in. Thank you. I'll go through the list of, thanks, Emma. I'll add you. Let's see here. I'm not looking at my phone, so you're gonna have to send me that info, or I can pull it up on my my software actually, if it's easier for Deanna and Paula. I can do that really quick because I know I have your guys' charts. Or at least I think so. Thanks, Rome. I got you. Deanna, can you put the information in the chat for me? Oh, there it is. January 2nd, 78. Thank you. Appreciate it. $7:55 p.m. in Inglewood. Okay. Once we get everybody in, we can get going. So we've got Stephanie, Deanna. Let's put Paula in. December 9th, 1970. That was 4:02 p.m. Alberta. All right. Paula. So let's get Tiara and Emma in there. $4,285. And that was at 10:08 a.m. And last but not least, we got Emma. So let's get Emma in there. Let's see, Emma. March 18th, 76. $11:50 p.m. Okay, cool. Got all my level 3 people. All right, so you guys will go first. Let me just do a roll call really quick to those of you guys who made donations who are going to be up next. So you guys can hang, you can listen in, and I'll let everybody know whose payments I received. Awesome, thanks for joining us. Hi all the new people. Is there a link to this membership? You should be able to go to, oh, there it is, level 3. You can join right there. So it looks like we got Rachel, Katie, and Kayla and Melanie. So let me add you guys. Rachel, Katie, Kayla, and Melanie. Cool. So those of you guys who want readings, donations, if you guys would like to, we're going to be talking purely about the lunar eclipse in Taurus. Hey Melanie, what's going on? Hey Lisa. All right, cool. So here's who we've got in order. So we're going to take Stephanie, Paula, Deanna, Tiara, Emma. You guys are going to be my level 3 people, followed by Michelle. We've got Sherry, Karen, Amanda, Rachel, reading for Greg, another Rachel, first Rachel S, and then the second Rachel, who is Rachel H. Katie, Kayla, Melanie. Okay, so let's see, who else do we have here? Let's see. And I see, yes, the super chat. I got you. So you're actually going to come in. It looks like you were right in between Rome. So I'm going to put you in there. You're kind of smack dab in the middle, so just a heads up. But thank you for your donation. How do I pronounce your name? I want to make sure I'm saying your name correct. You and your Leo broke up today. We're not doing synastry, but I will talk to you about what I see in your chart in regards to the eclipse and relationships. So no worries. I got you. No worries. Okay. So appreciate your guys' patience. We're going to have to stop at some point and we're going to have to come in and add charts, but it's all good. So we're going to add charts about halfway through. We'll probably keep the sign up for readings maybe up for like 10-15 minutes because it's going to take a while to get through everybody. So if you're watching and you're like, I don't know if I want a reading, you've got about 15 minutes and then we're going to close it down because these are usually pretty long. Before we get started, once again, just so you guys know, this is for Western astrology. So I'm going to be taking a look at the transits in your natal chart. You'll see an inner wheel and an outer wheel. The inner wheel is going to be your natal placements. We need to know the exact time, date, and location to be able to cast your chart. If you don't have this information, you can come back in 2 weeks on Saturday. You can join and we can take a look at your chart, or you can also get the information off of your birth certificate. Call your mom, call a family member, somebody who might have this information. We're going to look at the transits and how this incoming lunar eclipse that will be at 16 degrees of Taurus is going to be impacting your guys' chart. We're keeping everything strictly to that. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into it and let's see what we've got going on. So let's go ahead and start with Stephanie. I apologize, I gotta scroll up a little bit. Struggling to get clientele, lash business, adding permanent makeup in 2023. So in terms of the eclipse for you, Stephanie, obviously you're a Libra rising. The sun is in Cancer. I practice Placidus. I do not look at whole sign. But for the sake of this, I'll let you know that the eclipse that's kind of happening is, in theory, I mean, it's aspecting your sun, it's sextiling your sun, but it is building into what would be a 10th house whole sign sun. So if you were to look at Libra rising, you know, sun in Cancer is 10th house to your ascendant. So this eclipse is actually sextiling your sun. The eclipse will be taking place in your 7th house, which does deal with clients and clientele. It deals also with relationships and partnerships that you have with other people. Now, this is interesting because at the time of the eclipse, the ruler Venus, which is also your chart ruler, is in direct opposition to this eclipse. And to me, that's screaming something being in high demand, or people having an interest in what you have, or giving yourself the chance to be able to put something out into the marketplace. Like the 7th house is like your website. It could be the services that you have to offer. It could be your clientele, like anything like that. So I'm not saying launch something during the time of the eclipse, but I am definitely seeing that there is an opportunity for you to basically put something out there and be like, okay, this is what I have to offer. Venus rules your 8th house of other people's money, okay? That's the other thing. So what I want you to take into consideration is this is a lot of like, what service do you have to put out there? What are you charging? Are you charging your worth, right? As this South Node swings through Scorpio, it's still affecting your 2nd house of resources. For some Libra risings, money can still feel a little tight, but this most recent eclipse that you had specifically, it was setting the stage for bringing in new resources and like finding ways to kind of be creative with like, you know, with bringing in more resources. So I look at an eclipse that's 8th house to your ascendant and I'm like, yes, raising prices asking for more. Part of that's also because your products and things are going to start costing more, because the 8th house is the actual cost in general. Across the board, I would say we don't want to like jack up the prices during an eclipse. Also, Mars rules your 2nd house, and it's currently retrograde in Gemini. It's dropping back down into your 8th house. So it's a good time to start looking at new ways that you can be marketing yourself and promoting your services. I would say Gemini is diversifying. So this is like literally diversifying ways that you can go about promoting your business, and maybe putting a little bit of money into advertising in a variation of different ways that may be like on social media, right, Gemini? This is also maybe investing a little bit more money into like marketing materials, or like what you can teach yourself about marketing in general. I think the eclipse in your 7th house is wrapping up what's been 6 months worth of work in regards to your relation with other people. And it's uncomfortable because for everybody, this is an eclipse that's going to square Saturn. So long story short, you're looking at this going, I have cost of living, I have increased, needs with Saturn in the square. And then you have the eclipse actually happening in the 7th house. It might be a good time to like let clients know consistently between now and the end of the year, I'm offering specials if you buy packages. I'm offering specials if you want to pay for stuff up front, if you want to buy several fills, if you want to book things now before we get to the new year, letting people know that your prices are going to increase. And it would be a smarter idea to start increasing those prices probably somewhere closer to either the Mercury retrograde that's going to be in Capricorn, because you're going to see trines to your natal Venus, or your other option is wait until you get into the eclipses that are going to take place for you in the spring, April and May of 2023, and then up the prices. But yeah, I mean, I think that, marketing is everything with that Mars retrograde. And as Mars drops into your 8th house, you're changing and transforming the way that you look at interacting with clients and customers. And like, it's worth putting a little bit of money basically into promoting your services to a clientele that's going to have a little bit more cash, because you've got, basically Taurus Venus that's in the high degrees in your 7th house. So luxurious products, things that are going to be a little bit more expensive, adding a little bit more shine and polish to your public image, showing people you're going to get what you pay for, and being able to justify making some of the changes. But this eclipse in general, I think for the most part, the sextile to your sun is quite beautiful. You're also going to be saying that there's a trine to Mars in your 11th house. So I wonder if there's a way for you to be able to like use referrals, where you say to people like, okay, refer back to me. If you get referrals from other clients, then you're going to be able to issue them like a discount. Because it's trining Mars, which rules your 2nd house. In the 11th, maybe you go and you post on like groups or on, Facebook groups or Instagram groups, whatever it is, whoever you have groups with, or be telling people, bring your friends in and I'll give a discount if you get so many referrals. That's a way to be able to kind of generate more business with the sextiles and the trines that you're experiencing. It's really wonderful to see what can be a really kind of stressful eclipse, trine all of your planets in your 3rd house, sextile your sun, and trine your Mars. Yeah, perfect. So, I've seen, at least just for me, I'm a Libra rising, a lot of the Mars retrograde has been printing stuff, like things that's like, I have to print this, I have to print that, I have to organize this, I have to create pages and like promotional stuff. So use the Mars retrograde, I think, to your advantage, and find ways to be able to go and design and create and print things or put things together that might be promotional, or things that you can actually hand out that's going to improve your business. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Stephanie. I'm excited to see all of that stuff expand for you, especially once we're getting into the spring of this next year. You're really going to see all of the hard work that's really going to blossom as a result of the solar eclipse that you just had in Scorpio that was connected to your 2nd house. So you're going to start seeing Jupiter going into your 8th house in this next year. You're also going to see Jupiter hitting your Venus, more clients, but higher end clients. And think about a diversification of the kind of work that you're doing. I love to hear that you're going to be doing permanent makeup. I also wonder if you're going to be doing like little hand tattoos. I know that sounds weird, but because you have Venus in a Gemini degree, it's either going to be stuff relating to like brows and around the eyes, maybe lip liner, because Gemini can be connected to the mouth, or little tiny tattoos that people might want to do on their hands. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. All right, so let's take this to Paula. What's up, Paula? Hopefully you're doing well. You guys can still get in if you want. I would post a list, but It's long, so I will constantly do a check-in, so I appreciate it, but I'll give you guys a heads up. Once we get through the level 3 people, we've got 4 more, then we're gonna move on to Michelle, Sherry, and Karen. All right, Paula, so my dear, I would imagine you wanna know what's going on with the eclipse and you're cashing in for your reading. You have got this eclipse that's coming in hot, and it's going to be smack dab within a degree of your Saturn. So very, very, very significant for you. It's really important for you to be taking a look at what's going on for you in terms of like your non-negotiables. Like when I think of Saturn, I think of like boundaries, limitations, maturity, like commitment, like something like that. Anything in regards to being able to focus on a goal and like sticking to it. I think of Saturn as like laying the cement or anything in regards to glue, okay? Saturn in Taurus obviously is about your commitment to your craft, your commitment to your resources, your commitment to your body, any commitment that you're making specifically to what you're creating. It can be a lot about finances too in the sign of Taurus. I want you to think, Paul, about like what's been going on the last 2 years, because you've had Uranus right on top of your Saturn, where it can be making you feel like you're kind of getting a little antsy, right? Especially feeling like you're having trouble sleeping or having trouble feeling secure or stable. This is an eclipse in your 12th house that you really want to spend out in nature. I know it's starting to get cold up there in Canada where you are, but my advice is like grounding techniques, going outside, being outside, working with crystals, eating hearty meals that are going to be healthy, lots of grounding, vegetables in general. But an eclipse that's in between Saturn and the moon is bringing up this theme of, you know, am I worried about my resources? Am I worried about my partner's resources? Now, you kind of have to train your eye to see this, but Saturn rules your 8th house of other people's money. So that's joint spending and things in regards to, you know, if you're paying the bills with somebody, if you have joint accounts, if you guys have anything in regards to loans. And then the moon deals with your money and your security. So an eclipse that's smack dab in between the moon and Saturn, it means having some real kind of come to Jesus moments where you're like, you know, we need to be able to talk about like all of the things that we haven't really discussed in regards to security, joint resources, insurance, debt. So if somebody owes you money and you're like, hey, like when is this going to get sorted out? This eclipse can bring that up. This is more intense for you also because it's in opposition to all these planets that you have in Scorpio, and it's in a square to Saturn. Traditionally, you know, the 12th house, when we see eclipses here, it can be something that comes out of the blue, out of left field that we don't see coming. Sometimes it's in the form of a dream. Sometimes it's in the form of being like, oh my God, you know, there's this unexpected situation that happened and so, you know, wound up needing some kind of medical treatment, or I found out that they're, you know, really struggling mentally or emotionally. Because it's so close to your moon too, like there is this theme of the impact or the burden that this has on you emotionally, and it can be stuff relating to family. Thankfully, this is an eclipse that is a part of something that's been playing out for a long period of time. So this can be like the closing of the chapter of, I don't want to worry about money. I don't want to worry about security. I don't want to worry about the world anymore or the state of the world, especially because the 12th house deals with everything that's going on outside of your country. For some reason, I also feel inclined to tell you that because it's involving Saturn, and Saturn is the ruler of your 8th, it's about a partner going through a period of possibly having like a breakthrough in regards to their work and in regards to money and resources. So it is possible that it can be like, you know, somebody who's been working hard and says, okay, here, I want to give you something because of everything that you've been doing to help me. And that could be the thing that comes out of the blue. Keep an eye on like maternal figures like mothers, grandmas, stuff like that, especially an eclipse here on top of Saturn moon. It definitely brings that theme up. And whether or not they need some kind of support or they need some kind of help. But, you know, I would take a look at also what happened with the eclipse that we had recently. These eclipses are coming in pairs. So the first one came in at the end of October, right on top of your Mars, which was kind of bringing up still 12th house themes. Unfortunately, Taurus is intercepted in your chart. So that means that when things are taking place in Taurus or in Scorpio, it kind of hits you off guard and you don't see it coming. But I would refer back to what happened at the end of October, and where there was like more of an emphasis in being like, I got to pay attention to my health. I got to take better care of my health. I have to make changes in my schedule. I either need to be getting back to working out, or I need to like make shifts in terms of where or how I'm working. This is that second chapter to that, where it's like, okay, as a result of the changes you've made, are you getting more rest, right? Are you feeling a little bit more at peace? Or are you in a situation where you've been working through it, and eclipse in the 12th house can send you into a period of needing more rest and recuperation? Regardless, it's kind of hard for me to imagine that this is not going to be a very active eclipse for you. Like, I feel like it's going to be something that's going to play out clear until next spring. For many of us, we will start to really see the effects of this particular eclipse when Uranus comes back to 16 degrees. So that could still even be into the spring of 2023. But yeah, personally for you, I think this is a part of a bigger chapter, and realizing that there's something about your daily routines or your health or where you're working or how you're working that's just not quite meshing, like it's not quite coming together with the emotional needs in your 12th house, Moon and Saturn. I'm really curious, just the fact also that the eclipse is going to be right on top of your Juno. That does talk about like marital partners. So if you have a situation where a partner is, out of the country or out of town because it's in the 12th house, they could be saying, I had a sudden change at work, or I got offered another job, or, I'm having some health related issues. So it's definitely an eclipse that you would want to check in with a significant other if they are traveling or if they're in another place, just to make sure everything's cool. Those of you guys who don't know, Juno is the planet that is associated with like marriage and partnership. So an eclipse on Juno can basically be saying there can be an unexpected conversation about marriage out of the blue, or proposals, or talking about planning weddings, or something that is meant to kind of be a surprise. That's the other way that can kind of play out. I would take it easy. I would also say, because Saturn rules the 8th house, it's important to not allow yourself to be around toxic emotional people right now. The next couple days, like, there's more of a need to rest and recuperate, and like I said, spend time in nature. If it's too cold to do that, it sounds silly, but bring some plants and put it in your bedroom. The 12th house is your bedroom. So plants, crystals, creating more of like an earthy kind of Taurus 12th house vibe. If you want to vibe out and relax and eat some cookies in bed and like do that, that's very Taurus 12th house. You can, but it's about expecting that people are going to respect your private space. So if you're feeling a little emotionally sensitive and you're feeling like withdrawing, make sure you're bringing the element of earth into your bedroom. So that way, as you go through the next couple of days, you're going to feel like you can kind of come out of it and you're going to be feeling a little bit better. So sleep patterns are probably going to be not so great. Full moons in general, when it's a part of your natal lunar return, usually there's just like a sense of being more active at night or just more aware of things psychically. So really consider taking my recommendations on either bringing crystals or plants into the bedroom, because it is going to help you kind of get a little bit more rest, which is hard when you've got Uranus right on top of your Saturn. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Paula. Let's pull up Deanna's chart. Hey, Rachel, we're working through the list, so you're kind of halfway through, so just hang tight, but we're only answering questions on the lunar eclipse, so that's what I'm going to be taking a look at on the readings this evening, because we've got so many people. All right, so Deanna, let's take a look here. I know you asked a question, or you had something to say. Where is it? Deanna, get your chat. Let's see. Life's been good. Talk of marriage. Curious about the possibility of goodness of the eclipse. I got you. Thanks, Paula. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's take a look. So I'm so happy to hear that life has been good as a Leo rising. I hear that very, very, very rarely with some of the transits that are going on, but perhaps maybe this is part of working with the Saturn-Uranus square. You know, Saturn is coming back into your 7th house, so there is some seriousness in regards to relationships in general. So a lot of these things are getting a little bit kind of sorted out, and you're committing to timelines and certain like long-term relationships in general with Saturn coming into that particular degree of 20. Well, the eclipse, right? The eclipse is smack dab on your midheaven. You know, I remember talking to you about this like months ago, being like, yo, this is the eclipse that's really going to make everything kind of pop off. An eclipse on your midheaven, a completion, a lunar eclipse, so it's a full moon, is basically shining a light on the fact that, you know, you're completing something very significant about your public image, right? So, you know, the moon is the ruler of your 12th house. So it might be like an announcement to the world, hey, I'm changing my status, or I'm in a serious relationship with a foreigner. Moon rules the 12th house. Can there be some unexpected situation at work that can play out? 110%, okay? Like your midheaven is less than a degree away from this eclipse. So going into work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know, hearing that somebody, you know, resigned, or somebody is the new boss, or there's some new department manager, like these things can happen as well. And it's about your relationships with superiors, or your relationships with people publicly. So it could also be as simple as being like going on Facebook and telling everybody you're in a relationship, or that you're engaged, or posting photos with you and, you know, your guy. Like it could be that kind of stuff too. Leo risings in particular, because this is an eclipse saying it's time to level up when it comes to the public image, especially of your relationships. You know, I mean, I think that's like the big direction that you're going in. Look back at the new moon solar eclipse that we had in Taurus around the end of April, beginning of May. That was an eclipse that was also very close to your midheaven. It was around 10 degrees. So it's that setup for, this is everything I've been working towards, and now these are the changes that I'm making with the planets in Scorpio right now, emotionally or within my home, to better facilitate those things that I've been manifesting. It's an anything goes, girl. I mean, an eclipse conjunct Uranus in general, to me, you know, the 10th house deals with your career, but your partner's home. So it's making me feel like there's some kind of like prompt to be like, okay, are you coming here? Are you moving here? Like, when are you doing that? And also the 7th house does talk about partnership and union, but more so marriage. Very close to where we had the Mars-Uranus North Node conjunction. So if you guys remember, we had this at 18 degrees. So this eclipse is going to be conjunct that. So things that maybe sounded crazy in like July is like, okay, hurry up, let's speed up the process. So quickly changing jobs, quickly having people move, quickly getting engaged, quickly having, you know, somebody move in. Like these are all the things that kind of happen with these transits. Personally, I would say just intuitively knowing that Saturn is going to come into an opposition with your Saturn, if this is the right person, and if you are that secure in the connection and you're that confident, get the show on the road. Because when Saturn comes into an opposition with your natal Saturn, it's going to be harder to either financially or literally in regards to documents and jobs and things like that, make it more challenging. I thought all along, because the United States is in its Neptune opposition, over the next 2 years when we see the Saturn square, it's going to be harder to actually become a citizen of the United States. There's going to be much more challenges, you know, just even being able to say that you're like supporting somebody through marriage or through work. So I would not wait. I personally think that the Saturn opposition could pose some real challenges, either in terms of documents or financially being able to get him here. So it's kind of time to be talking about this now, coming up with a strategy plan to maybe be making these changes between now and like March of 2023, right? Right as Saturn's getting ready to go into Pisces. Otherwise, the Saturn opposed Saturn could be like having to wait longer and there being delays in general. You know, same old, going into work, don't ruffle any feathers, not the time to get into it with bosses. It wouldn't surprise me if you find out that somebody who's been there for a very long time is leaving, and that they may be bringing somebody back from the past to kind of help support through the process of this change. But if you're happy in like where you're working, then like it should be fine. It's just maybe you get an award or you get recognition and like your peers are talking about you doing a good job. Because the 7th house does deal with your relationship with other people. Okay, hopefully that's helpful for you. I'm excited to see how that plays out. Certainly Just thinking back, like I had eclipses on my midheaven a couple years ago, and I remember looking at it being like, I don't think this is gonna do much. And then 6 months later, my whole life was totally different. So good on you, especially being that it's ruled by Venus. It's about finding more time for love. All right, so let's move to Tiara. All right, thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tiara, for joining. I know that you're new here. Got your info. April 2nd, 1985. And that was at 10:08 a.m. in Illinois. All right, thank you, Rachel. We got your info. All right, so you are a Cancer rising, moon in Virgo, and your sun is in Pisces. So you're going to be having this eclipse in the sign of Taurus. So that's going to be taking place in your natal 11th house. This is putting an emphasis on your goals, anything in regards to your hopes, your dreams for the future. Very, very interesting considering the fact that it's pretty much conjunct your North Node and in between your North Node and Mars. So this is like, who am I networking with? Who am I friends with? Who's supporting me? What direction am I going in my life? And how am I growing my professional life? Because Mars rules your whole sign 10th. By aligning myself with like organizations, groups, friends, other people who can kind of help me like push forward in general. I'm really excited to see how this pans out for you, just considering the fact that you've also got the North Node on your Mars. So it's putting an emphasis for you on being like, in order for you to be successful, you have to participate with other people, working with teams, bringing people together. Like, you know, if you have to join a union, like if you have to like have group meetings, really look at what's been happening for you really since the better part of like, you know, what we had, I guess, summer of this year when we had the end of July going into August. There was this emphasis in some of these themes that were playing out. It's possible that there could also be some conflict with friends as well, okay? Because Mars can be conflict. It can be bringing up challenges in regards to some of your friends in general. Is that you that's talking to me? I want to make sure that's you. Yeah, I've got April 2nd, 1985. That should be the correct info. That's what I've got here. It looks like Pisces, but it's not. The sun is in Aries. There she is. I got a job 10 days with much better pay. Bingo. So a lot of that's also Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter going into your 10th house. This is why I like Placidus. Timing wise, it's better. But yeah, Jupiter's, you know, it's now going retrograde and it's coming back into Pisces. So it's going to have this more, what are my beliefs? Where can I travel? What am I doing? But I'm really curious about the group or the organization or the business that you're working for and where there is just this incentive to like work as a team. It's going to be pushing you to focus more on, you know, who you're collaborating with and like who you're working with in general. How this eclipse affects you though, I mean, being that it's so close to your North Node, I'm not going to say unusual, but this is pretty damn close. Like when you have an eclipse within 2 or 3 degrees of a North or a South Node, it's basically the universe being like, hey, this is the direction that we're going in. So being that it's ruled by Venus, you got Venus in the 10th house, it makes me feel like, do you become friends with people who you're working with? Do you start going out and having dinner or drinks with them? Do they invite you to parties, right? Uranus and Jupiter going through your 11th house over the next few years tells me you're going to meet a lot of artists, professional artists, higher quality people who are gardeners and cooks and they're into restaurant stuff and they have galleries, like all of these like very Taurus things. And you're just going to be meeting more people that are going to be aiding and adding more quality to your life, but also to your social life. So as this eclipse comes in, it's going to oppose your South Node, which means it's not just about your creativity, you working as an artist. It's about you going into celebrating and collaborating. And if you're an artist yourself, being a part of like gallery works and group showings and that kind of stuff, going to theaters, going to shows, going to art galleries and fundraisers. You're going to see more of this stuff that's going to start setting up, and that's because you're getting pulled more into your 11th house. You'll see, especially spring of next year, there's going to be just a lot going on there where you can have a lot of support from other people who you're working with, who you've become friends with, who can also shine a light on some of the work that you're doing as well, right? I love that. The North Node and Mars in the 11th house is like, you got to party with friends, you got to work with friends, you got to go out to dinner with friends. These are all of the themes that are going to be coming up for you, especially over the next 2 years. Really excited to see Jupiter also come into conjunction with your sun, and it tells me that somehow you might be doing some kind of management next year. You're going to be doing more in regards to, like, you know, you will have an opportunity to show your stuff, but you might be managing other artists or some kind of collective group, especially when it comes into conjunction with Mercury as well as with Mars. Excuse me, Mercury with Venus. I take that back. So Jupiter coming into that conjunction makes me feel like you're going to be doing scheduling, and you're going to be doing this, and you're going to be doing that. Oh, cool, you're a manager now. Okay. So, I mean, man, North Node and Jupiter going through your 10th house the next 2 years is like insane. You may, I'm not going to say you have to, but you may strike out and consider doing your own business in general, you know, possibly at least. But yeah, I think that this is just saying, like, where there's opportunities to collaborate with good friends, that's where you want to go. Watch for some squabbles and drama. There can be people around you that are having tiffs. I would just say stay out of it, because it's going to square your Jupiter. You can give advice, but don't get involved. That's the one thing that I would say. And like, go to some of those parties when you get the invitation. You'll see some of that coming up throughout this month, and then you'll see more opportunities for that in March, April, and May of next year. Really awesome to see that eclipse on your North Node. The events that play out revolving around this eclipse is definitely going to be part of your path. And so you say that you like, you know, astrology and tarot. Uranus is on your North Node right now. It's going retrograde. I would say you can do that. I would say join a group or in a collective, right? Join a group and a collective. That way you can help start promoting some of the stuff that you're doing, get kind of acclimated with some of these people. And then in the spring, you're going to see more of that grow because you've gotten kind of set up there. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Emma, and then I'm going to go through the list of everybody that we have, but it's going to be a hot minute. If you guys are signing up now, you're looking at waiting at least an hour, if not a little bit longer. Let's go to Emma, and we're probably going to close at 8 o'clock. We're going to close down the reading. So if you guys want to get a reading, you're going to have to do it in the next 9 minutes. All right, so this is going to be for Emma. Emma, I'm hoping you're still here. Okay. March 18th, 1976. So let's take a look at where the eclipse is taking place for you. So we have got a Capricorn rising, sun in Pisces, and your moon is in Scorpio. Holy cow. You had that eclipse was on your moon. How did that go? You'll have to let me know. So the second eclipse that's coming in hot is going to be in your 5th house. Not a bad eclipse, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's relatively close to your South Node. So there is like this pouring out of creative energy, romantic energy, wanting to have more fun, experiencing life, maybe even some romance. The eclipse is also going to sextile your Mercury, and it's going to sextile your sun. So it's actually really great for like inspiration and anything in regards to kind of creativity once again. 5th house, lunar eclipses. Cup runneth over, feels like very like Ace of Cups to me. It has the opportunity to feel in love with something, tell someone you love them, somebody tells you they love you. It's big for like personal launches, creative projects that you're kind of putting out, anything in that regard. An eclipse that is during a reverse nodal return also. So if you notice, the transiting South Node is conjunct your natal North Node, the transiting North Node is conjunct your natal South Node. We call this like the reverse nodal return. Happens every 18-ish years. It's where the past and the future meet in the present. So I'll try to simplify this so you don't get lost. But your natal North Node is in the 11th house, which means you're here to be a part of groups and work with other people and do collective stuff. Your natal South Node is in the 5th house, which means that you have lots of creative energy and you focused on yourself a lot in past lives. So in this lifetime, you're going more towards working with groups. You are in this funky period of time right now as the North Node goes through the 5th house about your happiness, your joy, your creativity, what you love. You're being given like a free pass to kind of make it all be about you right now. So if you want to be self-employed, if you want to create art, if you're wanting to take care of a child or have a kid, if you're wanting to kind of have like a wild romance or anything like that, now is the time with these eclipses in your 5th house. Super friendly because it's also in the same element as your rising sign. And it's also going to be making a trine to your midheaven at 16 degrees of Virgo. So I'm kind of curious, like, what happened for you during the Mercury retrograde? Was there a sense of reorganizing things professionally and thinking about what you really want, what you want to create, and what you want to put out there, and how you could have more fun? There can be big, things coming up in terms of just matters of the heart also with eclipses taking place in your 5th house. For the most part, it's actually pretty friendly. A sextile to your Mercury is going to open up your business stuff. A sextile to also your descendant opens it up for relationships. A trine to your midheaven really helps your career. The only thing that's kind of like wonky is that it's very close to the South Node, ruled by Venus. So it is possible that you're like looking through old love letters, old text messages, going back and forth with somebody that you used to care about and kind of being like, do I reach out? Do I not reach out? And it's also possible that there is just like this breakthrough of like a lot of really great creative energy that happens as a result of this eclipse. I would look at the eclipse that you just had on your moon, personally, because you had a lunar eclipse during a lunar return. The moon is the ruler of the 7th house, which is also very relationship-y. So I'm wondering, like, what's going on here? Are you looking for someone? Did you meet someone? Are you partnering with someone on something? Because a lot of 5th and 7th house is like having fun, being creative, feeling flirty, and then, falling in love and sometimes being committed. But for the most part, it's quite positive in your chart, There was a big focus for me, enjoyment for me, much more liberation. Cool. The 5th house is, the 5th and the 11th house are some of the better houses in astrology, right? So it's like having eclipses in your 5th house can't go wrong unless you're in a situation where you're not living a joyful experience. So if you're putting more focus and emphasis on having fun, being creative, enjoying yourself, being present, that's what the 5th house is about, taking chances. It could be as simple as being like, I'm going to go out for the night, or I'm going to go out and have a date, or I'm going to, paint, or I'm going to take a tap dancing class, whatever. This is just much more creative energy. Have met someone out of the blue in the last 2 weeks, and it's pretty positive. So like I said, looking at that first eclipse, this is kind of wrapping up what's been going on for the last 2 weeks. So it does look like there can be much more room for passion and romance. Just be careful with eclipses in the 5th house, because sometimes it does bring drama, okay, knock on wood, and it can sometimes bring unexpected pregnancies. So just be careful with that. But I think the fact that it's gonna square Saturn in the 3rd might be like having conversations revolving around like what it is that you're really looking for and what it is that you really need when it comes to romantic connections. Doesn't mean you have to have a serious commitment conversation, but I think that it is leading in the direction come the eclipses next year that will be in Scorpio in the spring, of having some big kind of conclusion where there's like some of your goals and somebody else's goals aligning when it comes to romantic relationships. So it could be just having more serious conversations about what you're looking for. Sounds good. Good luck. I'm glad to see that happen for you. It looks very exciting. All right, so we moved through all of our level 3 people. So I'm going to do a roll call because I know a lot of people are asking, where am I on the list? I will let you guys know. Let me pull this up. You're very welcome. Last call is coming up in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right. So last we had on the list was Melanie. Let's see. Tiffany. You guys have to put your question in the memo. Otherwise, I'm just going to read generally for the eclipse for you. Amber. Chakra. Healing. And then Catherine. Okay, so guys, we got a long list. So roll call would be Michelle, Sherry, and Karen, and Amanda Elise. Then I've got Rachel, one for Greg, one for Rome. We've got our super chat that jumped in there. I apologize. I'm still trying to figure out how to pronounce her name. Rachel, H, Katie, Kayla, Melanie, Tiffany, Amber, Chakra Healing, and then we have got Catherine. And we are going to close it in a minute. Some of you guys might need to grab a snack. Catherine, Coltrane, Kimberly. We've got 2 questions from Crystals and Iris. So we are going to close that at 8 o'clock sharp. Okay, cool. Ayanna, okay, thank you. I don't like it when people mispronounce my name, so I don't want to mispronounce your name, you know? Okay, so let's get into it. Michelle, Sherry, and Karen, you guys are all on deck, so you guys might want to pay attention. So we're going to move to Michelle. Hey, Iris, I got you. Okay, so Michelle says, advice on financial gains, longer term, moving to a different city, managing energy. So how does that relate to the eclipses? Well, Michelle, I've got you here as a Libra rising, Sun in Gemini, and you have got your moon that is in the sign of Libra. Long story short, I'm not going to get into everything, but Pluto is square Pluto for you right now, and Saturn. So this theme of, I can't take the pressure, I need to make a change with where I'm living. Like, yes, that's a real thing. That's going to get amplified. You're going to see this in the spring as Pluto gets squared by eclipses. Start thinking about moving, especially come January. It's really important for you to be thinking about that because Pluto square your natal, Pluto and Saturn is going to be grueling and it's going to keep telling you it's time to move. In terms of the eclipse, this lunar eclipse that you have that's going on, it's right on top of your Mercury. This is also why you're like, I'm melting. It's bringing up lots of mental stress because Mercury is the ruler of your 12th house. It's also the ruler of your 9th house. And guess what? Mars is going retrograde back and forth over your North Node. So that's interesting. You've got a lot of personal things that are taking place in your chart right now. I think with like a Mars retrograde, which is really amplifying the fact that you're saying you need help or that you need some kind of assistance or you need some kind of mentor or you need a therapist or you need some actual relationship support. The list goes on. Factored in with eclipses in your 8th house on top of Mercury is like all of the fears kind of coming out, okay? You're gonna see there's a lot of Libra risings that like to hang out in my reading room for some reason. I am one of them, and let me tell you something. This eclipse is in exact opposition to my Mercury and my Pluto, so I'm feeling the stress as well. When eclipses happen on a personal planet, it's going to amplify that planet. So Mercury in Taurus, especially retrograde, is a tendency to like not want to communicate that you're having financial stress or not wanting to communicate that you're dealing with fear and you're worried about something. So what the eclipse is doing is it's basically saying, get out with it, detox all of those things, write a letter, tell somebody how you feel, get a reading, right? Which is kind of what you're doing. Pay attention to your dreams, rest, detox, recuperate. Mercury is associated with organizing and clearing things out. So whether this is like really going through tax documents, really going through anything in regards to making changes in your spending habits, sitting down and talking to somebody and telling them that you're stressed out and that you need a sense of like redirection, that seems to be the theme in general for what's coming up in your chart. Now, moving forward, you really want to work with whatever gets shaken out because the square is happening to Saturn in your 5th. So it's squaring out doubts, matters of the heart, issues with stuff pertaining to stuff that's getting cleared out from your childhood. It's clearing out old romantic relationships and where maybe you're taking too many chances, either financially or potentially even with love in general. But moving, I mean, psychological changes are happening, you know, with Pluto in your 4th and eclipses in your 8th house. I feel that being somebody who has so many planets or so many placements in Gemini and you're having this Mars retrograde, whether you're deciding that, you know, you want to talk to somebody about, you know, making some changes in your financial plan, that's very Mars 7th house. Deciding that you also want to go and reach out and tell somebody that you need assistance if you have a partner. Believe it or not, a lot of the transits that are happening right now are not saying, hey, relationships are the answer, but eclipses in the 8th house are trying to get you to think about how you can actually receive support from other people. Sometimes it's insurance payouts, sometimes it's a wealthy spouse, sometimes it ends up being somebody who comes in and they invest in your ideas or they loan you some money so you can take a break. It really depends. But this eclipse is wonderful in the sense that it's shaking it all loose. So if you've been afraid to finally deal with the financial issues, you'll deal with them now. But it's in a sextile to your Venus in the 10th house, and Venus rules your chart. So it's trying to get you to be aware of your worth. It's trying to bring in sudden unexpected support and somebody who's going to come in and kind of help you with the process of figuring out what you can do to make more time for happiness and feeling fulfillment. I wouldn't move until at least after mid-January personally. I also feel like you need to be prepared for this next year as Jupiter goes in your 7th house and it's trying to get you to align more with partnerships and people who can help you. Once again, this isn't me saying that relationships are the answer, but I can see that there's a lot of back and forth with finances in your life because you have Sun opposed Jupiter and Uranus, and like money can fall out of the sky like right when you're like on your last leg, or you can be in situations where when you need help, somebody is willing to lend a helping hand. It's just a matter of you reaching out and saying, hey, can you help me? Letting people know where you stand. So really be considering and reconsidering, I think, anything in regards to changes in your daily habits. Start with that now with Mars square Jupiter and Neptune in your 6th house. There is definitely a need to go back and forth and start thinking more long-term about how you can change your day-to-day routine, not just where you live or where you're working. It's how you're living your life and really addressing what can be some stressful energy levels personally with those conjunctions in your 6th. Be open to the breakdown, the total like clearing of the decks that comes from an eclipse in your 8th house. And you'll see as a Libra rising, Jupiter and Uranus in your 8th house really next spring is just, it's going to bring more opportunities for money and resources. And whether you move in January, or you're looking at moving closer to April, May of next year, financially, it will be easier for you to do it then. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Michelle. We've got Sherry, Karen, and then Amanda. So let's pull up Sherry. Sherry. I'd like to know anything you think it'll affect me during the eclipse. You're welcome, Michelle. Money, romance, career, let me know. Oh, hi, another Libra rising. So we've got the eclipse in your 8th house, joint resources, karmic entanglement, sex, anything in regards to psychological triggers, other people's money, taxes, inheritance, the list goes on. For Libra risings who are listening, because Uranus rules your 5th house, this is about changes in finally getting a payout or a payoff. Like, it's not so bad. It can mean that there's suddenly a dramatic shift with your partner's resources, those of you guys who are partnered, or there can be changes in regards to the company that you're working for and their funding. You might get a bonus, you might get an unexpected kind of gift from the universe, things like that. But in this particular eclipse, once again, it sits on the cusp of your 8th house. I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about this. I'm a Sun Pluto, so I'm really like fixated on like death and transformation, and like when, especially prediction wise, we see like massive changes in our life. Usually it has some connection to the 8th house Lord, or it can have some connection to the cusp of the 8th house. So Sherry, you have an eclipse at 16 degrees on the cusp of your 8th house. I'm going to zoom in on it just to be annoying. It's right there, my dear. So that eclipse is going to be on the cusp of it. So what is it saying? It's bringing in the theme of, we go from balance, high fun stuff, you know, relationship stuff, partners, to boom, thrown into intensity, thrown into emotional vulnerability, right? Financial vulnerability, the list goes on. Sure, you're going to hear other astrologers tell you, oh, the eclipse is in your 8th house, not a big deal. I look at that and I'm like, that's kind of a big deal. It's going to sit on the 8th house cusp. It's creating a slight sextile actually to Saturn, a slight trine to your moon, and obviously it's very close to the south node. So this is how you are affected psychologically about releasing and letting go, whether it's like paying a tax bill, paying off a credit card, getting rid of a loan, or somebody who leaves your life, or somebody who suddenly comes into your life and offers you support. You want to look at these themes right now. Not entirely that bad. I mean, you're going to hear for Sagittariuses, the eclipse is, you know, 6 to your sun, blah, blah, blah. Watch for health problems. Obviously not a time to be getting like surgical procedures. It's not a time to be doing like Botox or anything that's going to be more cosmetic. So I would say you want to steer kind of clear from that. And if you are going through relationship changes or changes in regards to just your philosophy about relationships, it's how is this affecting you psychologically? That's what I want you to keep asking yourself. This trines your Neptune. This trines your natal Uranus. There is a huge emotional clearing that's getting ready to happen here. My advice to you is to roll with it. Like, you have support, and you have a little bit of time before Saturn comes back into an opposition with your Mars. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but this seems to kind of suggest like there's definitely a lot of like relationship changes and turnover that's been taking place. That's the vibe that I'm kind of getting here. You have also been in your reverse nodal return. So there's been a lot of like where, you know, you're learning to kind of clear out old patterns for yourself. You become more open to letting the right people into your life in general. So if you've had sudden dramatic ups and downs in relationships, you're going to find that actually from here on out, really significant people are going to be coming in. So being that it sits on the cusp of your 8th, it could be that there's somebody who comes in that just totally transforms the way that you see life in general. As with all other Libra risings, Jupiter going into your 7th house, really positive for relationships. Really be aware right now of what it means to end, release, and let go, and where that gives you the opportunity for new life. So many Libra risings are going to benefit from being like, I'm paying off the loan. I don't want to worry about it. Even if that means I have to eat into my savings. I'm finally going to file my taxes. I'm finally going to take a look at how much money I've spent on my credit card, or I have too much stuff. I'm just going to give it away, or I'm going to sell it and let it go. Whether it's a person or a habit or a thing, if you release it, it's really going to help you right now, and be more so open to bringing in new relationships, especially. That seems to be like a really significant theme in your chart. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Sherry. Let me know how that plays out. I've got Karen, Amanda, and then Rachel, and I know Rachel will not be here, so I will take a look at that. And then we've got Greg's reading. So Karen, Amanda, and then Rachel. So let's bop on over to Karen. Also, readings are closed, so those of you guys who are just checking in, apologies, but we are done, and you can catch me next Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Karen, I've got you here February 12th, 87. That gives you a Taurus rising, a sun in Aquarius, and a moon in the sign of Leo. Let's see what Karen has to say. Looking to have an elective C-section on December 28th. Is this a good idea? No. I'll tell you why in a second. Any other big events that you see as well? Thanks for sharing your gifts and your talent. Thank you. I mean, I don't really talk about this a lot, but I'll go on a limb here and I'll say this. I, for the last 2 or 3 years, have had probably more than a dozen clients who have come to me and said, look, I'm pregnant, or I'm planning on getting pregnant. I want to create a chart. Tell me what time to go and get the C-section and have an incision. So we will literally choose the day, the time, all of that stuff to, you know, actually physically pull baby out, and then we know what the chart looks like. I don't really talk about it because some people get kind of weird. They're like, you're kind of playing God, but whatever. If that's what they want, I'll give them that information. The reason why I'm saying it's not a good idea, okay, is because Mars is retrograde. So Mars deals with surgical procedures. I looked at your chart when I was putting this in, and I looked at your question, and my eyes got really big because you have Mars, which is the ruler of the 7th house, which means other people, whether this is the surgeon, this is your partner, this is the baby, is in opposition to your natal Uranus and your natal Saturn, which tells me like there can be complications, there can be challenges, like it may not be as pleasant. Obviously, if you still choose to get a C-section, that's fine. I'm not a doctor. I'm just going to tell you what I see. I'm not a fan of Mars in opposition to Uranus because it tells me there could be nerve issues, there could be physical problems with your body, you could have problems with your bowels, like all kinds of stuff could be going on. And I know that when you're looking at a C-section, you only have a period of anywhere from like 3 to 7 days that you would actually have to do the C-section. I'm also not a fan of when Mars goes in opposition to Saturn. So right now Mars is kind of opposite of Uranus. And now Mars is going to be going retrograde, and it's making an opposition to Saturn right around November 27th. Mars is forceful, it's cutting, right? It's severing, and Saturn is like, I'm not ready. So you may find that in the process of going through that, like there's challenges with timing, you know, they have to reschedule you, you may not get the day or the time that you want. There can also be just like complications with surgery. I'm not one to tell somebody what to do with their pregnancy plan. So I totally get it. Like if you're like, look, I don't want to have a natural birth, I want to have a C-section. I would advise you not to do it in the days that Saturn is in opposition, that Mars is in opposition to your natal Saturn. It may also play out that if you're planning on having your OBGYN there or a specific doctor, they may not be there. They may say, oh, I'm out of town, or, you know, we scheduled it, but there was an emergency and like I couldn't be there. These are the things that might play out for you in general. The eclipse is actually going to be on your ascendant. So that eclipse in general, sometimes when we see a full moon lunar eclipse on the ascendant, it's a forewarning of pregnancy, because something is kind of like coming to a completion, right? The moon is full. So that can be saying like, actually, I don't know how far along you are right now, but like I would really pay attention to your body and your nervous system, because you might be saying, I'm planning on having, you know, this C-section, and then all of a sudden you're like, I went into labor. I have seen that happen during some of these transits. So during the time of the eclipse, just really pay attention to your body and your nervous system. Obviously, the sun rules children and pregnancy in your chart. Saturn is coming into conjunction with your sun, so it's kind of like that 2 or 3 year process of finally becoming a parent and getting the opportunity to do that. I would like to see more harmonious aspects to your sun. I don't know what the timing is. Like sometimes babies come when they come, but if we can get like at least maybe Venus or the sun coming into a sextile with Saturn, that would be better, but that is going into December. So for a question like that, I would say it really depends on when you're due, what dates you've been given, and really looking at those dates. And if you're really limited to those dates, or if you want to take a chance and see how far you can go into the pregnancy and potentially try to have a natural birth. I do offer that if that's something that you're interested in. So I'm not blowing you off, but I would need to know a lot more information in terms of when you're due and all of that stuff. You know, eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, they deal with life and with death. So in general, the North Node Uranus eclipse on your ascendant is you being like, whoa, I feel like I don't have control of my body. I'm not in control of my body. There's now all of a sudden this other thing that's kind of taking over. So there might be a sense of you feeling like having out of body experiences, or when you're going through the process of labor, or if you're going through the process of surgery, being like, I'm not here anymore, and feeling like kind of like a alien in your own skin. That can happen with that eclipse. I also think that, you know, the sun maybe coming into a trine with your moon in Leo could also be positive. So, you know, depending on the flexibility you have, if you can do something like maybe right around that new moon in Sag around the 23rd. I mean, Mars is still retrograde, but it's not exactly in opposition to Saturn. And you're going to see like Sun, Moon, Venus, and Mercury all on a trine to your Leo moon. And it's all starting to come also into a sextile with your sun. So November 23rd-ish looks good, but I'm going to tell you, still try to stay out of that Mars opposed Saturn timeline and watch for the eclipse and the effects that it has either on your nervous system, or it can also just be about your nerves in general. So you don't want to be eating anything or taking anything that's going to be a stimulant, because it will have like a real strong effect specifically on your body. Due date is the 4th, and you want to do it on the 28th of December. Mars is still retrograde. It's getting ready to station, and it's not in opposition to Saturn. Personally, I mean, once again, you know, it's really what you want to do. Sometimes people come in and they have an idea of how they want to, you know, how they want things to go, and then I tell them what the astrology really looks like. Obviously, Cap Sun, it'll be a moon in Pisces, and the moon is conjunct Neptune. Creative, dreamy, whimsical, but personally, you're still dealing with, you know, some conjunctions to Neptune and some squares to your natal Uranus. Not my best day. I think it would probably be better if you're doing something like having the moon, you're not due until the 4th. Something like having the moon in the early degrees of Taurus, trining the sun. So you're not going to like this, but New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve seems like a better day. Mercury will be retrograde that day. So also, just me personally, wouldn't be my choice. If you want to do the 28th, you can, but just know with the moon conjunct Neptune, you may be dealing with issues where the baby is flipped upside down because of the feet, Pisces, and also Venus is conjunct Mercury and Pluto. So you're going to have a very intense mind. That's a lot of planets in Capricorn. You can't really get away from that because all of the planets are going to be there. I personally would rather have the moon conjunct the North Node in Taurus, and I would try to opt to have the baby on the 31st. That's just me. So I don't know if you can swing that, if people will be willing to do it. If not, you can wait until later in the first, but then the moon's going to square Saturn. And I'm also not crazy about the moon conjunct Mars. So you're looking at trying to do this probably on the 31st, or if you want to go with the day that you want to do it earlier in the day before the moon conjuncts Neptune. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck with the baby. Very exciting stuff. Venus, Pluto, Mercury. What a beautiful kid that is going to be. Really pretty eyes and bone structure. Beautiful skin, too. He'll look like a little doll. We've got Amanda. We're going to do Rachel, Greg, and then we've got Rome. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. So let's take a look at what Amanda has to say. Okay, so Amanda E. This lunar eclipse activates my natal grand fixed cross and almost exact on my nodal return. Any details what you see coming up for me? Thank you. I appreciate it. I like your style. I like your language. Stuff that I understand. So you've got an eclipse, basically, yeah, that's going to be pretty close to your North Node, but also to your moon, which is associated with the North Node. So you also, if you're into astrology, look at your lunar return, see what the lunar return is telling you is going to be going down for the next month. It's going to be really important. What is a grand fixed cross? When you have planets that are in Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, as well as Taurus. So you have to have placements in all of those signs. Part of me feels inclined to tell you, like, you're born for this. So if you've got those planets in a natal fixed square, it's just kind of like bracing for impact. It's like, okay, it's tension, but you just got to hold the tension. And it's not just about where the eclipse is, it's actually more where Saturn is. So yeah, you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be close to your moon. That's important because it's going to bring up goals, right? The 11th house Lord. And it is going to be taking place on the cusp of your 9th house. So goals about the bigger picture of life, about travel, about what you find beautiful, where you're going, what you're learning. But really it's squaring Saturn in your 5th house. And I look at this and I'm like, dude, are you making time to have fun? What have you learned with Saturn in your 5th house? Okay. What has been going down here? Because Saturn's in your 5th, it might feel like a bit of a killjoy. I know it's rough, especially if you have all these planets in Leo where you're like, having challenges with friends, having difficulties communicating, probably feeling like it's having a real effect on you emotionally because of the squares and the oppositions to your moon. But stay focused actually on Saturn. Even though the eclipse is there, Saturn is going to be where you're going to get the pinch. I, like you, I'm an early degree Libra rising. I have the same placements. My nodes are where your Mercury and your Sun is, and I've got all of these planets in Scorpio. So I'm also feeling this eclipse coming, and I'm like, fuck. So my advice is make Saturn be the star of the show. It's not necessarily about the eclipse in Taurus. That's just the emotional changes and everything that you clear out. I look at this and I'm like, do you need to take a trip? Do you need to have fun? Do you need to take a dance class? Do you need to start painting or acting or creating? Like, do you need to focus more on love, relationships, romance? May not be the things that are at the top of your list right now, but I think it's actually really important. Finally, when you come to the end of the year, you're going to have Saturn come out of an opposition with Mercury. So if you've had friends that aren't communicating well, if you've had fallouts, if you've had tiffs and stuff, it's really about being able to stand up and kind of dust yourself off and go, if they don't want to be my friend, fine. If we're not getting along, fine. I need to make myself happy. I can't base my happiness off of other people. I can't base my happiness off of what other people want me to do and whether or not I feel accepted. Like, to me, this looks like a real need to like have a party, take yourself on your own date, like do your own thing. You'll be fine with the square, but I will let you know that this is the preparation next year as you start to see like Uranus and then also Jupiter coming and making oppositions to your natal Saturn. To me, that screams you're going to meet somebody, they're going to try to get you to travel all the time, they're going to say, let's pick up and move somewhere together. It's kind of trying to break you out of your rigidness. And I say that lovingly. If you have a fixed square, you're a little stubborn. So I'm wondering like where there's been some reluctance to make the time or communicate or travel or go places in general. and really open yourself up to new experiences, right? Especially because if this was a whole sign chart, your north node and your moon is in the 9th house, which means you do need to travel, you need to experience culture, you need to go places, and you're going to have a partner with Jupiter and Neptune in your 7th that's going to be like, let's get up and go somewhere. So it's trying to get you to focus on matters of the heart and ways to be able to have fun and express yourself and open yourself up more for love. And Saturn in your 5th house, square Uranus in the 8th house, is about whether or not you're open to the idea of parenting. In a year's time, when Jupiter and Uranus are coming back into conjunction with your north node and your moon, you're going to have friends having kids and you're going to be like, am I doing that? Do I want that? And because that's all going to square your natal Mercury, it's going to be like, is that my goal, right? So it's going to be about whether or not you're going to do the parenting thing. More of this will make sense when you get into the spring of next year. But I personally feel like it's not actually going to affect you as much as it would just somebody who has a bunch of planets in Leo. Because you were born with this square, bring your attention more so to how Saturn is the person pushing for you to make the emotional changes right along your north node. And having an eclipse conjunct your north node with your nodal return, what's changing and transforming about your joint resources? What are you opening up to in terms of your emotions and your roots, and making changes and transformations and opening up, I think, to changes in your home, changes with your friends as well. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Amanda. Good luck. We've got Rachel. She's not here. I'm going to do the reading for her, though. Rachel, we've got the reading for Greg, and then we've got Rome, followed by, let's see, we've got our super chat reading, Rachel H, Katie, Kayla, Melanie, Tiffany, Amber, I think that's Charlene, Katrina, Kathleen. I'll go down the list, but I've got all of you guys, don't worry. We've got quite a few more people. So let's do Rachel's chart. And I know she's going to come back and listen to this. Thank you. My work and mental health is really getting hit hard, pushing against my relationship, how to survive the rest of the year. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that Saturn coming into your 7th house. So I remember letting you know, as Saturn approaches the 7th house, there's real significant definitive things going on with your relationships in general. This eclipse in the 10th house, okay, is about huge changes and transformations going on that's out of your control. It's kind of wild, right? You're honest. In regards to your career and your relationships. So some Leo risings are having experiences where they're like, I can't work with my partner anymore, or I can't stand my boss, I'm ready to quit, I'm ready to get divorced, and like, I'm done. Other Leo risings are having experiences where they're like, okay, there's pressure, the relationship needs to change, as does the work. How do we make it work together? Like, these squares can actually push you into making full-blown changes in your life that can be a positive. So don't look at it as a negative. Where you're getting your ass kicked is the Mars retrograde, because Mars is going retrograde and it's going to be dipping back into your 10th house. And this is about whether or not you're kind of overdoing it with work. And if you're doing too much, if you're working with your partner and you're working a job and like having to kind of make a decision and pick a lane. The eclipse is going to be taking place in your 10th house, which means something's got to give. Is it going to be the relationship, or is it going to be work? And I feel like the pressure is real as planets move through Scorpio in your 4th house, and you feel the tension specifically relating to your home life and whether or not you feel comfortable at home, if you're feeling challenged by partners, and if you're also feeling challenged by your work responsibilities. So you have to ask yourself, which one can you start to kind of trim back or kind of cut loose? What's most important? You know, believe it or not, both Saturn and Uranus are very important this year. Saturn is going to provide structure for Uranus to give you the change. In many situations for Leo risings, like the partners who show up and they're more stern and they're serious and they're commitment oriented and they kind of push you to show up, be on time and do things, it's forcing you to make huge changes in regards to your 10th house, which is your career. So if you're balancing two things, which you might be looking at this chart, a partner can be getting on your case being like, look, you know, we need to be able to communicate. We need to get this work done. Like, are you ready? And Uranus is now going retrograde over your midheaven. So it's basically saying both work and relationship stuff can kind of turn on a dime very suddenly. How do you find the balance, right? I mean, the truth is that as Saturn is coming into the 7th house, I think there's conversations about the reality kind of setting in of relationships, and that, you know, you kind of start to lose a little bit of like the glow of like, everything's great, we're getting married or we're engaged. Like, you start to see the reality of the situation, and that when the going gets tough, you guys have to kind of work together. What I like is that as soon as Saturn gets into Pisces, it starts trining your Sun, trining your Venus, trining your Mercury, and I feel like it could be very positive. It could actually have you guys building a company, building something, and like for all we know, the stress and the tension is coming from your unwillingness to break out of old patterns in regards to how you've been working in the past, or if you're taking on too much. But this eclipse is going to square Saturn, so you got to make a decision. I also think that as Saturn comes into conjunction with your descendant right around like the holidays, there's more going on there. And then you have a Mercury retrograde in the 6th, so it's like you have to pay attention to your work and your daily routines and make sure you're not overdoing it. And the true test is going to be when Saturn crosses your descendant. So you're not really going to know what's going to go on with the relationship stuff until closer to then. Mars is retrograding back in your 10th house. You're going to see it make several aspects to your natal Uranus, which means you could go, oh my God, this is too much. I need a break. It might be a good idea for you to be opting to like do some travel at the end of December, getting out of the house, and like really be asking yourself if you're in the right kind of work. And if it's not working, just looking for another job isn't going to fix it, because I'm wondering if you're taking on too much with Mars in Gemini in your 10th house. Where's the positive in all of this? I mean, like I said, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This will be Saturn coming into Pisces, coming into trines and making positive aspects to your Sun and your Venus. The Sun rules your chart, and you might find that on the other side of this in March could be a stronger relationship, more success in your career, and really feeling like you like made everything come full circle. And there's more support also going on financially. So I'm wondering if some of the tension is the fact that, you know, somebody's balancing more than one thing. And in terms of like mental stuff, you know, Saturn coming into a trine also with your Mercury is really going to help kind of bring the ability to kind of communicate and feel a little bit more secure in this next year. But yeah, don't overschedule yourself. Don't carry too many things at one time. Like that's the best advice I can give you, because it seems like that's probably most likely what's going to be going on. And also just watch for Sagittarius season as planets are going through your 10th house. And it's going to oppose the moon, and it's going to square Neptune. So something's got to give. You guys have to have a conversation about resources and what you're spending and what you're saving, and like whether or not, you know, making budgeting changes is important. And watch out for that full moon in Gemini, which will be conjunct Mars, and it's going to square Neptune. And that's around December 7th. And that's where I think the bending and making decisions about joint resources is going to shift. And if that means you guys need to shift gears and be like, look, the relationship's having issues because we're working together, I think I need to do something else, that might be it. And you can figure out how you're going to fill in the gaps financially after that. Okay? It's challenging out there, guys, with the mutable squares. And especially if you've got a lot of Gemini or Sag or Pisces in your chart, or Virgo in your chart, you're definitely going to be feeling these squares. And from what I can see, this stuff started actually in Virgo season. So you should have seen this like August going into September. And if you need to make a segue to save the relationship, to salvage the relationship, in a way, there's this feeling that like the relationship and the work can't always happily coexist right now, and one has to come ahead of the other one. And if that means just taking a step back to preserve the relationship, I think that you guys can find ways to reconnect, especially closer to like March of next year professionally. So it might just be about taking like a consulting gig or this or that until you get to the next phase. And then when you feel more ready to work together, it might go a little bit better. Okay. Good luck. We've got Greg's chart. And it looks like your wife was kind enough to set you up with a reading. Let's see here. So I saw boss taking advantage of him, having to leave your home of 12 years because the owners are selling, everything's more expensive, your husband's been asking for a raise with resistance. You have to be out of your place at the end of January. Can you expect a raise or a new job offer, paying more in time? And this is for Greg. So challenging stuff. I think a lot of this is, there's a lot going on here. The eclipse is in the 8th house. Once again, Libra rising, challenges in regards to joint resources, stress involving money and resources. It's squaring Saturn in the 5th, which means also, you know, taking some hits ego-wise in regards to being like, okay, you know, asking for more, which he may not want to do. He also had an eclipse that was conjunct his moon, and that was about finding out that he was not going to be staying where he was going to be living for a period of time. So that eclipse conjunct his Scorpio moon that happened at the end of October is finding out that he's going to move and not having the resources to stay where he's been. I would speculate that the South Node coming into conjunction with that next spring would have made that happen anyway. Believe it or not, I'm not putting this on you, but the eclipse square Saturn is also saying it's pushing him to really stand up and like know his worth. And then next year when Jupiter goes into his 8th house, it's about him making more money, but it's about him making more money possibly and being able to move, and or it's because his spouse is bringing in more money. So from about mid-April through June, July, August of next year, Jupiter going in the 8th, partner making more in terms of resources. So that also tells me that you're a part of this, or he gets a bonus, or he's getting paid more in another job. There is a Mercury retrograde coming in the 4th house in January, and that's telling me like things kind of switching and kind of changing up in terms of where he's living. So I'm hoping that you guys are moving before the end of December. Because moving in the midst of like the holidays going into January with a Mercury retrograde seems like a little challenging. I get the impression, just to be honest with you, like, yeah, the owners are selling, bro, because they're aware of like what's, you know, kind of going on economically and they're trying to get out from underneath the house. Let's say they say to you, you can stay there until we sell the house. If they don't sell the house, the Mercury retrograde could then be going back on it and basically being like, okay, we're going to have you guys stay a little bit longer. So I don't know if they give you guys a definitive date or not yet, but it does make me kind of feel like most likely there can be a bit of a flip-flop. You're going to start to get into the shadow, I think, right around, let's see, right around the second half of December. So if you're going to be shopping for, you know, places that you're moving or things like that, I would do that prior to December. The eclipse, though, that's really what this is about. The eclipse in the 7th house, and the 8th house, excuse me, is more coming in for him. I guess an eclipse generally that's in the 8th house is whether or not other people show up and they support him. I mean, it's going to trine his Mercury. It's also going to be making some positive sextiles to his 6th house. I feel inclined to tell you that it doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from this particular employer that's giving him more money. Because if he waits around with the eclipse in opposition to Venus, he'll get it at a later date, or he may not get as much as he actually wants. Right now, also with Venus coming into a square with Saturn, I don't know if he has already asked or if he's planning on asking, but I would rather him wait until Jupiter and Venus are in a trine. That's going to be much better for a Libra rising chart. So when Venus starts coming into a trine with Jupiter and the moon on November 12th through the 15th, those are days where he can get a boost. It may not be much because Venus is in Scorpio, or he may actually really benefit by looking at another job. I mean, in general, right? I'm looking at this and I'm like, he could be making so much more money. And you could find yourself in a situation down the road when the South Node comes into conjunction with the moon where he quits this job anyway. I mean, it's very rarely that I say on my channel, this will happen, but I'm going to tell you right now, this will happen. He will quit his job. And that will happen when the South Node comes into conjunction with the moon, especially if he's employed by a woman. That'll be happening closer to June of next year. So, I mean, honestly, the eclipse is going to bring in that offer. Likely, if he has an opportunity to jump ship, even though he's been working with somebody, if he's been working for somebody for 7 years, that's a Saturn square, it's time to get going. And Libra risings have an opportunity to take a chance and bring more money in right now. So if he's going to end up leaving this relationship business-wise, you know, basically could be March, could be June of next year, he will leave. He might as well get the show on the road now, especially if he's worked for somebody for so long who's not willing to show a little bit of appreciation and empathy. And you need to watch his health, okay? I'm not saying that to scare you, but like Neptune's in opposition to his sun. He's having really bad anxiety and he's feeling kind of lost and he doesn't know what his purpose is. And he can have lots of digestional issues. There can be addiction, sleeping problems, drinking issues that can come up with that opposition. And then going into this next couple of months, Mars is also in a square. So for Libra rising chart, a Mars retrograde is what other skills does he need? What other certifications does he need? Does it benefit him to get out of the rat race and go and take a course or do something to help him really prolong and expand the opportunity for him to get training or certification in a field now, rather than another 6 months or a year cycling through another job, right? Because South Node conjunct the moon can bring that up for him next June if he doesn't find something that he's really genuinely happy with. Moon in Scorpio placed in the 2nd house relating to the 10th house. If he does building or architecture or anything in regards to food, or I don't know what it is that he does, but it's a 2nd house thing. He has so much opportunity with Saturn going into his 6th to like really finally start having some stability, but I think he needs to be working in a new location. So ask him if he wants a short-term solution. I know you guys have to pay the bills, or if he wants to actually get to the root of the problem. Cut this, because personally she's going to take a hit according to this chart. Well, I mean, car industry in general, that's not the business for him, as much as I hate to say that. Jupiter and Neptune being whole sign connected to his 3rd, that's not the business for him. It's not. If he wants to do that, he can. He'd do much better in real estate. He'd do much better in like documents and anything in regards to like loans and property management. I mean, these are things that's kind of better for his chart personally, because Cancer is his midheaven and the moon's in the 2nd. And maybe like going and doing work for people who are wanting to like renovate spaces. I know that sounds like weird, but that would be really good for a 2nd house Scorpio moon. I would say getting out now, because there's going to be major issues with the auto industry. And with Saturn in opposition to Jupiter and Neptune, what's happened is Mars is now activating this and saying like she's going to tell him the money's going to come, or she'll give him bonuses, or she'll do things in the future. She won't do it, you know? And Mars in the 9th square Neptune, he has to watch out for her not necessarily playing by the rules or doing things that are illegal. Mars retrograde is going to be about who he's working with and whether or not they're being honest, or if they're lying and forging documents or paperwork or falsifying things. But I would try to push him in a new direction, just knowing that Saturn is coming into a trine with his midheaven, and the eclipse in the 8th house is the willingness to kind of take a leap of faith and make a shift, and spending a little bit of energy or money in going in a different direction. He can bring more money in. Like, it's not going to be a problem. This eclipse is basically about him saying, you're either going to do this or I'm going to walk. And so if he ends up walking, you know, I mean, it's scary because I see that he has bills to pay, but I feel like he could be in such a better situation financially March, April, May, June of next year. And his chart seems to suggest you're going to be doing better as well. A lot of Libra risings do very well collaborating and working with their spouses. That's something that I'll tell you. So you might want to consider that as the North Node on Jupiter goes through his 7th house. You guys have the opportunity to kind of start some kind of business or be doing something together that can be much more sustainable in the long term. Hopefully that's helpful. I know I've got you again, I think somewhere in here. So I'll come back to you. We have got Rome, followed by, let me go through all of my list here. Appreciate your guys' patience. We've got Ayanna. So we've got Rome, Ayanna, Rachel H, Katie, Kayla, Melanie, Tiffany, and then Amber. Thank you guys for your patience. All right, Rome, let's see what's going on. Let's pull your info up. Aries rising, sun in Virgo, moon in Virgo. We've got an eclipse. I know you have had a rough time with these eclipses. I remember talking to you about this the last time, about how you had an eclipse that was conjunct and opposed your Mars, so finances were a little tricky. But now we've got an eclipse that is a full moon Taurus lunar eclipse in your 2nd house. And so money is on your mind. Resources is on your mind. The ruler of this is Venus, and you've got Venus that's in your 8th house. So now you're kind of cooking with gas, because to be honest with you, so many planets going through your 7th house does bring opportunity for partnership and relationships, not necessarily just romantic relationships, but professional, clients, things like that. And now planets are going into your 8th, which is like kind of like pay me type energy, especially when Venus is coming into close proximity with Mars. So not a bad energy at all. Can be really great for sales, wheeling and dealing, bringing in more resources. I mean, a full moon in your 2nd house can be about a purchase or some kind of chunk of money that comes in very unexpectedly for you. You may find that that's playing out more closer to the mid-November period. And I'm also liking the fact that it's all coming into trines with Jupiter and Neptune. So this is about like getting ahead of bills, paying things off, feeling like you're putting money in the bank. Like you may not see it yet, but I do think that you're going to start seeing it once you get closer to the mid-November period. For for Virgo in general, Scorpio is the 3rd house. So this is also like contracts, negotiations, apps, learning. So I'm wondering, like, are you going to be teaching somebody something? Are you getting paid? Are you offering a service? Are you doing it online? Are you offering installments to people? Like things like that can kind of be popping up with this eclipse as well. Yes, the eclipse is going to square Saturn. So it does kind of suggest that there is a need to focus on what you are building, what you are growing, not other people. So it's more about kind of pulling you out of feeling like you need to go out with your friends or going and partying and having a good time. Really looking at like who you surround yourself with and wanting to surround yourself with people who are going to be really supportive of the person you're becoming. In the process of focusing on your money in your 2nd house, you might feel like a couple friends fall off in the process. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. The eclipse is obviously happening in a sister sign. So the fact that the eclipse is in your 2nd house, putting an emphasis on the money that you make, it's trining your moon and your sun and your Venus, and it's bringing in opportunities to help other people and have a fair exchange. It's also bringing in support if you need support, work if you need work, like pretty positively aspected in this chart if you ask me. Sextile Jupiter, Neptune on your ascendant. I mean, probably one of the better things that can kind of be going on in general. So just a heads up. 2nd house ruled by Uranus. Uranus is technically the whole sign ruler of the 11th. So you might also find that there's like referrals coming from friends, or friends say, hey, I've got somebody, you know, if you're looking for work, or I want to connect you to somebody, network, like meet with them. That's the other way that the Saturn square can kind of play out here. Know that planets coming back into conjunction with 27 degrees is reactivating these eclipses as well. So where 6 months ago those eclipses were pretty gnarly, now you're going to understand why those changes happen, because it's bringing in fresh new energy. Mars conjunct Venus around the 12th and the 13th of November. Love it, passionate, sexual, money-making. Mercury conjunct Mars, initiating deals, conversations, talking about resources, being able to get somebody else on board. The Sun coming into conjunction with Mars, the opportunity to have business and to be collaborating and bringing in more with another person. This energy is not just about money making, it's also about passion and sex. So there's lots of opportunity to have lots of fusion with other people, collaboration with other people too, to kind of like generate more resources and bring more money in, or feel like you're getting the support where the support is needed. I mean, it's almost like too good to be true. You know, usually an eclipse in the 2nd house can be like, oh my God, I got to pay this bill. But I look at all the planets that are in this 8th house where it's like, if you need to generate cash, there are people who need your services. So it's just a matter of putting it out there and asking. And it's all trining and sextiling both Jupiter and Neptune. So you got to kind of keep up with the vision boarding, the planning, the manifesting, the praying, the chanting. Like you got to maintain that vision for where you're going. And needing to consciously take time to sit and do that on a regular basis and maintain the faith. Mars is your chart ruler, right? So to have an eclipse that's going to be in opposition to Mars, but Venus is there, makes me feel like it's like bringing in the people who need you just as much as you need them, whether it's professionally, financially, or romantically. So you're going to see that kind of open up as well. I think you're going to be really pleased when this eclipse season is over, to be honest with you, because you're going to realize that there is this rebuilding that's going on for you in terms of your skills, your self-esteem, your resources, even how you're eating, right? All of these eclipses in the 2nd house is like, what do I acquire? What do I need? And being that it's ruled by Uranus, you're like, I need good friends, right? I need solid people. I don't need just a bunch of people. I need a few really solid people I can rely on who are going to help support me, and they are going to help build me back up. And you're going to realize that all of the clearing out that's been going on is getting rid of people who aren't going to really help you go deeper into your career or go deeper into the life that you're trying to build. So I'm not worried about it. An eclipse in opposition to Jupiter, ooh. I mean, it might just be suddenly somebody says, hey, I'm going out of town. You want to come with me? You're like, I can't afford it. And they're like, I'll pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'll be stuff like something like that, or something that somebody wants to go and do, and they'll be like, come on, I'll take you along for the ride. And you're like, really? Because it's in opposition to Jupiter. So somebody will say something like, you know, they'll back that, they'll finance that, they'll loan that. Don't worry about it, I've got your lunch. Like, you're going to start being more so on the receiving end of things. So I feel like the key word here is like, thank you, I accept, I receive, right? I appreciate that, I will receive. Because you look at the karma of your chart, stellium of Virgo in the 6th house, tons of planets conjunct Saturn in your 7th house. You have spent so much time serving other people. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, and I'm not saying that you should be bitter, but you serve other people, right? You can show up for other people. And these eclipses have kind of knocked the wind out of your sails a little bit and made you realize you have to invest in yourself, and that the right people who are meant to be in your life are going to meet you halfway. And that you can't make a bunch of sacrifices for people who aren't willing to kind of meet you halfway. And so now that planets go through your 8th house, it's yes, thank you, I receive that, I appreciate that. Thank you, right? It's going to get a lot easier, and I'm really excited to see what happens. Do you gain a friend who's willing to take you along for the ride because they're having a good role? Do you find that there's like a new talent, a newfound sense of self-esteem? That's something else that I would say. And like having friends that are also going to call you on your bullshit, because the eclipse is going to square Saturn, is important too. Having friends that aren't going out partying all the time, you know, doing all this like riff-raff. Like, you want friends that are going to be like, don't screw around, get your act together, you know, go home, get a good night's sleep, go to work. People who are more Saturnian, as Saturn goes through your 11th house. They're mature, they've got goals, they're sticking to it. Those are the people that you want to spend time around. They're going to help build you back up, okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we've got Ayanna, and then we'll have Rachel H, and then Katie. So this is the point in the show where I get to do a lot of other putting charts in. So you guys can take a bathroom break, grab a snack, get something to drink, whatever you got to do. It'll take me probably a few minutes just to plug these in. So I appreciate your patience. Okay, so we'll start with that one. Let me pull up her info. Okay, so Ayanna. And I'll do another roll call so you guys know where I am, because I know we've got some people who are still waiting. 3192. 1:29 p.m. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then we've got Rachel. That's 9196. .35 a.m. in Detroit. ten 2092. Citrus Heights, California. Kayla. Kayla, can you send me your info again? I need that. I did not save it because I cleared everybody out. Katie, I will refund that for you once I'm all done. What's up, Vikas? Kayla, if you're there, let me know. Move on to Melanie. (10:09 p.m. Madison, Wisconsin. Got a lot of people from Wisconsin here tonight, huh? Okay, got Melanie saved. We've also got Tiffany. Tiffany, you did not put any information. I need that from you. So you guys are going to get bumped to the end of the list if I don't get your info. Amber. (6/26/82). 11:28 p.m. All right. (9/24/88). We've got Catherine. Let's see. April 24th, 89. 8:24 p.m. Coltrane. Thank you guys. I'm almost done. Once I get everybody in, we'll be good to go. January 31st, 93. (12:05 p.m.) And just as a reminder, guys, we're only talking about the eclipse this evening. That's all we're going to be talking about. I'm not going to be answering much other than that. I hope you guys understand. That's why we post that on the eclipses, so you guys know that we're only looking at that this evening. Kimberly Smith. And that is 10/30/73. 9/26 Jacksonville. Okay, I still need Kayla. Kayla, I did not get your info. And Tiffany, I did not get your info. You guys can send that to me, please. Also, Ellie, I refunded you, but if you're here and you want to get a reading, let me know and get you back on the queue. Okay, so in this order, we're going to do Ayanna, Rachel H, Katie, Kayla, if I can get your info, and then Melanie, okay? And then we've got a whole batch after that, but these are going to be the next ones that we're going to do. So let's get into the next batch of people. So we've got Ayanna. So I know you have questions. You're going through a breakup. Let's take a look at what's going on. So I've got you here, March 1st, 92, 1:29 p.m. So Cancer rising, moon in Aquarius, and sun in Pisces. So the eclipse is taking place in Taurus for you. So actually you're kind of having eclipses that have been going on in both your 5th house, which is about love and relationships, and your 11th house, which deals with goals and friendships and other people who you're friends with, just in general, groups and associations. My guess is, and this isn't so much a guess, that's a combination of things, right? So you had a solar eclipse in your 5th house, which is huge changes, sometimes drama in regards to relationships. You had that at the end of October. It was in a square to your Mars. So it's bringing up issues in regards to relationships. Secondly, you are also in the midst still of your Saturn return, right? It's not going to be done until closer to the new year. You are born in 92, so you have Saturn in your 8th house of other people, resources, and intimacy, and it's in a square to Pluto. So it plays out as like both two things cannot coexist, right? Saturn going through Mars, Moon, and your natal Saturn, challenging karma in regards to security and psychological stuff with other people, but Saturn rules your relationships. So till Saturn comes out of that square with Pluto, it is not unusual for there to be some turbulence in your love life. What does the eclipse mean for you though? Well, the eclipse in your 11th is about your friends. It's in opposition to your 5th house, which is your romantic partner, your boyfriend, and the squares to Saturn in your 8th house. So emotional, psychological challenges that come up. Do you align with your friends? Do you reach out to a friend, tell them you need help or that you need some assistance or you need some feedback or something of that regard, right? You've also had Saturn going through your natal Venus. Oh my goodness. From one Saturn Venus to another, things get better after your Saturn return. Usually there's something that goes on 27 to 30. There's some kind of karmic clearing. You're dealing with issues relating to like love life not maturing. And then right when you get to the tail end of your Saturn return, things get better. Actually, in this next year, you're also getting ready to have Saturn come into conjunction with your sun. So I feel like relationships for you, when you get to the other side of this, are most likely going to stick a lot better. Yeah. The lesson here is reaching out to a friend, you know, and I'll say this, I've seen with a lot of Cancer rising charts, especially late degrees, with these eclipses and then Pluto on your descendant, some of you guys have had falling outs with friends and you like chose the partner over friends in some situations, to just letting you know. And the relationship falls apart and then you're like, oh my God, how do I reach out to my friend? Like they're going to say, I told you so, right? And what you're learning here with this eclipse is that good friends will still be there. So I feel like because the eclipse is in your 11th house and it's in a square basically to what's going on with, you know, Saturn being in your 8th house, like you have to swallow your pride on this one and just say, fuck it. Like literally that's what you have to do. Because the right friends will basically be like, did you learn your lesson? Okay, you know, like you hurt my feelings. You chose that person. You didn't listen to me. You might get an earful. But I actually really think that that's part of the process of learning that you can't be in the dark of the 8th house by yourself. Saturn coming into conjunction with your moon and Venus and Mars is actually bringing up some themes, I think, in relation to where perhaps there is some family patterning because Venus rules your 4th house and like maybe mom was really tough. She's gone through some stuff and she taught you to basically just like suck it up and be like, hey, everything's okay. Act like everything's okay. But internally you're like, ah, like that Elmo meme, you know? And I think it's important as Saturn is finally getting ready to transition and kind of leave your 8th house pretty soon and going into the 9th that you realize like it's worth, if you have good friends, reaching out and being like, hey, I fucked up. You know, can we talk about it? Can we make amends? This eclipse also, I mean, I got to tell you, it's all trining all your Capricorn in the 6th house. So if you need help, if you're like, I can't even get my butt in the shower because I'm crying, I can't clean up my house, I'm a mess, I need some support. Like, to be honest with you, I think the right friends, if you reach out to them and you communicate, and if there's accountability, this is a big theme right now in the world with Mars square Neptune, right? Mars going retrograde square Neptune is whether or not we're going to just be like, oh, I'm going to let it go. It's not a big deal. Whatever happened, happened. Or if we actually really grieve and we, forgive people by having accountability. Huge thing. My advice is go with what the eclipse is saying and be willing to kind of pull yourself out of the darkness of the 8th house. Reach out to the friends. The people who are not going to respond or not going to be there are not your people, but really great aspects with trines to your natal Jupiter. So it's opening up communication with others. Really great trines also to the 6th house, where I feel like you're going to have people who are going to be supportive. And it's important not to hide out and not have conversations, because you got Neptune getting really close to your Mercury, Usually Neptune Mercury can materialize as like, mental stress disorders, anxiety, addiction. So being that it's kind of Jupiter's there, Neptune's there, it's like if you get too far off into kind of like not reaching out and asking for help, some real mental disorders and some bad habits can kind of develop that, frankly, like you don't want to go there. You know what I'm saying? Reach out and ask for help. That's part of the lesson. You're also going to see Saturn going into your 7th house. You don't see, your 9th house. You don't see this yet. But when Saturn comes into conjunction with your sun and also Juno, which will be like the beginning of 2024, that's more so serious commitment, kind of getting married, settling down type of energy. And like, honestly, you were going to burn a relationship through this Venus-Saturn transit anyway. Like from somebody who has seen a dozen of these and even more. I mean, I see these every week, but I was going through the similar transit. Like, let that fucking person go. Just trust me, let it go. It may take you until closer to January, February-ish to kind of move through it during the Mercury retrograde. You might have to really like get all your stuff back, really commit to deleting their number, not talking to them, not returning. But making the cut is so important while Saturn is in Aquarius. And I would say, reach back out to your friends, boo-boo. That's what you need. The eclipse is in your 11th house, Jupiter going into your 11th house. Like, things can be really good. You can get back into the swing of things, and you can expand your social group as well. Don't stay in the dark right now with anything going on with relationships, right? And you can say they don't want to end it, but because Saturn is the ruler of your 7th and is conjunct Venus, which is in your 8th house, they don't want to end it because it's something that they don't want to let go of. That's Venus-Saturn is other people are going to treat you like possessions. They have you, but it doesn't feel good. And then you're like, okay, then let me go. And then they don't want to let go, or they say they do and they don't really end it. Unfortunately, with this type of a conjunction between Saturn and Venus, you got to be the one to cut it. And it means getting out of their space, getting all of your things, getting out of their house, and being like, that's it, because Venus rules your 4th house. So I also wonder if there's been some stuff that happened with like family members too. And if you had some female relatives that were like, what are you doing? We don't like this person. Don't bring them home, or we don't want to hear about it anymore. Finally end it. Look at friends and family and relationships, bridges that maybe have been burned. And ask yourself this, is a good, healthy relationship really one that's going to isolate you from your loved ones? Probably not. And whether it's a situation where they got sick of hearing about the drama, or a situation where that person isolated you from your friends and your family, that's not a healthy relationship. Saturn, Venus deals with isolation. Yeah, well then there you go. I'm not judging you, I'm not judging him, but it's like, dude, Saturn, Venus, Moon conjunct in the 8th house is like, there's a lot that you guys could have bonded over through trauma and through going through crisis, and there's a lot of intimacy, and there's probably a lot of connection there physically, but that's not enough. You know what I'm saying? It's not enough. So now is a really good time to like make amends with people and like reach back out and get your shit out of his house, or vice versa, because physical things that's like, oh, well, you have my this and I have your that, like actually really give everything and get everything back. And no more trauma bonding because you guys both have mom issues, right? Like Saturn, Mars, Moon, both of you guys have had difficult runs with your family, difficult runs with your mom, whatever. But until two people have gone and figured out their own shit, you guys are just going to keep hurting each other, and you're going to continue the pattern. Sometimes with these Saturn-Venus transits, you guys come together to realize like, wow, I actually really need to be the one to kind of work through this and not keep this perpetual pattern going, and yeah, continuing the karmic pattern, you know, whether it's with a soulmate or it's with people connected to your family. That's really what this is about in general. I was going to ask for my gifts back, but that would be petty. I mean, the 8th house is other people's stuff, you know? So I kind of feel like the eclipses, personally, like, let it ride. That's just my 2 cents on it. And I think Saturn is the sacrifices that you're willing to make with physical things as a result of being able to have freedom, right? But still, you may not really find yourself removing yourself from this like sticky situation until closer to that Mercury retrograde that's going to be happening at the end of the year and the beginning of January. But it's good to really go through the ending and kind of sever it while Saturn is in Aquarius, and you're only going to have until about March for that. So just a word to the wise, you know, the next 2 years, you're going to see eclipses happening starting next spring. That's going to be in Aries and Libra, and it's going to start squaring in on Pluto. So you're going to see like things aren't necessarily going to get better. And if he's got a stellium of planets in Leo and it's all in opposition to your Venus and your Saturn, I hate to say this, but you guys aren't necessarily a good match. If he's got planets in opposition to your Saturn, like, you have really high standards for what you need, and he's not going to be able to swing it, you know? Reach back out to your friends. That's the advice that I would give you. And I also personally feel like the Mercury retrograde is about wrapping things up, not necessarily talking about the future, really kind of closing that out and saying your goodbyes. Difficult time during these eclipses, guys. There is beginnings and there is endings. But yeah, personally, yeah, probably sounds like it's the relationship that you have before you have the breakthrough, and then you realize like, okay, now we've kind of cleared that bridge. Really hard when you have Saturn opposition, especially Saturn opposed like Sun and personal planets and things like that. And if it's involving the node, it's teaching them how to become. It's not necessarily meant to be. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. We've got Rachel H. I know we've got a couple Rachels in here. Rachel H. September 1st, 96. Libra rising, Sun in Virgo, and your moon is in Taurus. Let's see what she says. Fellow Libra rising, information regards the eclipse in the 8th and how the energies might play out in regards to your 0-degree Taurus moon. Are able to see signs of romance on the horizon. Let's take a look. So obviously eclipses in the 8th house, they are sexy, right? You could say that. Taurus in the 8th house, it's sexy, it's pleasure, it's slow, it's connecting with other people. So yes, that does kind of suggest that that's on the horizon. It is in opposition to all of these planets in the 2nd house, which is about your personal pleasure and what other people give you. And then it's in a square to Saturn. So it's about you looking at things going like, it needs to be this or better, right? When it comes to dating, relationships, romance, whatever. For a Libra rising who's like single and kind of like feeling things out, this eclipse might be kind of like, when are things going to get better? When am I going to be able to kind of physically connect with other people? The eclipse is close to your moon, but it's 10, 13 degrees off. So it's like, maybe if it was underneath 10 degrees, I would say, yeah, it's going to do something. But personally, I don't think so. But as the North Node gets closer and closer to your moon, yes, you will see things kind of going on there. And also when Jupiter gets close. An eclipse in your 2nd house is about building your own self-esteem. Jupiter going into your 7th house in the spring, especially like the end of February through May, it's like on like Donkey Kong. Then you've got Jupiter on your moon and the North Node on your moon May pretty much through July of next year. So that's when I see relationship stuff really expanding. Saturn's also going to sit in your 5th house. And so something that's interesting is it's going to oppose your sun. And this is about defining the difference between friends and being lovers and like not having like situationships and things that can kind of get in the middle of that. You know, people meet people when they have Jupiter transits in the 7th, eclipses involving the North Node in the 7th, Jupiter conjunct Juno. I mean, you've got all of those transits basically starting spring of next year. So yes, relationship stuff, but the eclipse really belonging to your 8th house is in a trine to your sun, which means what are your goals when it comes to intimacy? What are your goals when it comes to joint resources? How do you want somebody to support you? Do you want them to feed you? Do you want them to build wealth with you? Do you want to be touched a certain way? Like there's some aspect of you getting really clear about what it is that you need for security. Taurus isn't just about money. People think it's about money. It's about intimacy, feeling safe and secure, you know, physical connection, like really learning your love language, that kind of stuff. So I think an eclipse here in your chart, which is trining your Jupiter, trining your sun, is basically opening up and saying really intimacy is going to be like, do I share a home with somebody? Oh my God, how do I do that? That's kind of scary. Like, you know, I can't afford a home by myself, but maybe I could, or a bigger place with a partner. So then you go deeper into the 8th house, which is like talking about credit scores, talking about joint resources, talking about debt, savings, and your goals, and how to be able to kind of like get over some of these hurdles and be able to kind of grow with another person. So honestly, maybe I'm a little biased. I'm really excited for the Libra rising horoscope really next year, because I think Jupiter and Uranus coming together in the same sign, and then also in 2024 when they align, many Libra risings are going to find that financially they're doing wonderful because they got married, or they took on a business partner, or they invested with somebody, or finally that hard work starts to pay off. So I think the eclipse is more about you going deeper into your goals when it comes to security in the life that you want to build with another person. You got a lot of Capricorn in your chart. Obviously you're a Virgo. There seems to be maybe this emphasis in, gosh, you're on a Taurus moon. Like you need somebody who has their shit together. You know what I'm saying? Like not somebody who's just living off credit cards, or mom and dad is supporting them, or they don't have a goal, they don't have a sense of direction. Like Taurus moon in your 7th house is you need somebody who is working, they're stable, they're kind, they're patient, they smell good, and they dress well. Point blank. Being that the moon rules your 10th house, likely you'll either meet them through work, or you guys will end up doing some kind of work together. So I like that for you, actually. I feel like the eclipse is kind of setting you up, going like, I'm going to manifest what I need, how it's going to physically feel to have that person in my life and what we're building together. And that will reverberate out basically into this next year. Probably you'll see more of it manifest from Aquarius season on. But this is about stability, how it feels, you know? And the 8th house is weird because it's about magic and manifestation and like all kinds of stuff. And as crazy as it sounds, as a Libra rising, for those of you guys who are listening, magic and mysticism and manifestation and lighting candles, working with herbs, getting crystals, creating altars, praying to certain deities, like magic, you know? And like literally like tantra and orgasmic magic can also be a thing, because the 8th house is about sex, and then Uranus is that energy release. So if you are somebody who is like fond of the magical, mystical arts, you'll know that a lot of magicians will tell you that when you're focusing on something and then you orgasm and you think about it and then you release it into the cosmos, it's basically the strongest energy that you have. So I'm not telling you what to do in your personal private time. I'm just telling you, just food for thought, that if that's something that's going on, you can be trying to put that energy towards your manifestations, and you might kind of start to see that the universe responds to that, right? And that can be by yourself or with other people. And taking chances also when it comes to love and relationships. And I think you're really going to like it next summer, especially when you're seeing Saturn coming into a sextile with Jupiter, and you're going to be like, holy shit, this is too good to be true. How did I, bring this person or this situation into my life? And now we're building together, and it just comes together. I know, not usually am I this optimistic about stuff, but that's what's going to happen, especially seeing that Jupiter's going to start squaring your natal Venus and Mars. Somebody's going to be like, let's get going. Let's start the business. Let's buy the house. Let's renovate. Let's move. And you're going to be like, oh boy. And it's hard for you because there's been lots of delays in your private life. You got Mars and Venus conjunct in Cancer in opposition to Neptune. So you're like, where's my person? What's going on with my career? What direction am I going in? Where do I live? And Saturn and Pluto have just been kicking your ass for the last like 2 or 3 years. So now that Pluto is off of your Neptune, Pluto's coming into conjunction with your natal Uranus. My bigger concern would be, do you sporadically up and move, which can be exciting, Pluto conjunct that, but also for a Libra rising, that's about pregnancy and children. So you might fall in love really quickly, move, decide that you want to start a business with someone, start a family. So just word to the wise, like doing that prior to your Saturn return, especially because you have Saturn and the South Node belonging to your 7th house, like get an astrologer, thoroughly vet that person's chart, look at it, give you an idea whether or not it's a good move. I'm not here to tell people whether they could or they should get married prior to their Saturn's return, but if you have the South Node belonging to your 7th and Saturn belonging to your 7th, I could see you wanting to rush into a relationship in the next year. And it might be something that's in the cards, but you want to make sure that it's a good match. You know what I'm saying? Before you have your Saturn's return and Saturn hits your south node and it goes into your 7th, and in a couple of years' times, you're like, what did I do? And because you have Mars and Venus in Cancer in the 10th, it's like, you got to buy property with somebody. You got to, you know, flip houses with somebody. You have to have a business that is about home goods or something in regards to Cancerian things. Like, you will either end up with a boss or you'll end up meeting somebody and they're like, this is what I do for a living. And you guys do it together. And you're going to see that momentum build in this next year. So I think right now it's manifestation. What does it feel like when it comes in? How can I bring more of that in? Look for that sweetness to start showing up April, closer to May of next year. And like, yeah, all of the wizardy goodness can be used towards that. All of the Libra risings. You're welcome. Yeah, Saturn return is an interesting one. Technically, it's in your 6th house, so conjunct the South Node. So it's health related. It can be changes in relationships, but I see that more as like health related, especially health in regards to scheduling and care and children. A lot of Libra risings are going to deal with that over the next couple of years anyway. Good luck. We're going to move on to Katie. I have not heard from Kayla. I'm seeing if she's still here. Katie and Melanie, and then we have Tiffany and Amber. We're working through our list, guys. We're working through our list. Thank you for your patience. All right, so we've got Katie. I love to see people before their Saturn's return, you know? Awesome. But guess what? You had so many planets in Capricorn that like your Saturn return will be a breeze. All right, so you got Katie Walker. She says, can I have a reading on the eclipse and what it's starting to lead to? My career path is changing. I'm not fulfilled, even though I don't know what will fulfill me creatively, provide income. My self, inner child, and feminine are calling for attention and self-investment for me. However, there's a sticking point or habit I'm not giving up, keeping this from flowing. What is it? What can I get out of the way? Good question. I'm making a note to refund your $10. Thank you for that. I'll do that once we're done with the live. Well, so you are a Gemini rising, your sun is in Libra, and you've got your moon that is in the sign of Leo. So, oh boy, reworking is a really good theme right now. Okay, so eclipses in your 9th house, getting closer to God, feeling inspired, getting out of your own way, clearing anything that's affecting you subconsciously, like you're already kind of on the right wavelength. Mars retrograde on your ascendant is a redirection of your energy and how you're moving through life and what you're focusing on. Between an eclipse in your 12th house and a retrograde in your 12th house, I feel like this is time for dreaming, inspiration, time alone, reflecting, vision boarding, praying, meditating. All of these things are things you should be doing. Give yourself a little bit of slack also, because Mars is going to go retrograde over your ascendant and it's going to sit actually conjunct your South Node in mid-November. So you're decluttering any mental limitations, let's put it that way. Cutting and severing anything where you're like, okay, these are old outdated beliefs. I don't need this anymore. It's going to trine Saturn, so it's going to open the door, make it possible for you to do some kind of continued learning or development of your skills behind the scenes. Mentors, therapists, readers, shamanic practitioners, all of these people are really helpful through the process of navigating the 12th house, which you can get a little lost in. Know that when you get to about March of next year, when Mars sits on your ascendant, that's like go time. So you can use this period between now and March to like rework something and re-strategize what direction you're going in. And then boom, Saturn comes into Pisces and it sits on your midheaven. So it's a really great time, March and April of next year, to be like, and this is now what I'm doing for a living. So trust the process. It's going to take a little bit of time. This eclipse that's taking place is going to be in your natal 12th house, obviously in opposition to your Mercury by about 3 degrees, which is your chart ruler. So it's about saying like getting out of your own way, making the time, right? Challenging your schedule, challenging how you have always done things. You're like me, you got Mercury conjunct Pluto in Scorpio, and that's like a mind that just never shuts off. It's just constantly thinking, poking, prodding. So I think an eclipse in opposition to that is saying, calm down. It's affecting your nervous system. You got Uranus in opposition to your Mercury too. So that's telling me that there is a sense of like sudden inspiration and interests and spiritual opportunities and visions and dreams that are coming in that's like I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do that. I think it's about developing like a routine for like better navigating and kind of working with this energy, whether it's, pulling tarot cards, meditating 15 minutes a day and journaling. Like there's a need to kind of like wrangle all of that intuition in and bring it down and find a way to do it regularly so that way your mind isn't constantly all over the place. Been challenging also because you've had Saturn in opposition to your moon, so you've felt kind of limited in terms of finances. But I think that with Saturn in opposition to your moon natally, right, you have Saturn in the opposite sign, there is a sense of not until your Saturn's return being like, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm studying, this is what I know. And you're going to see Saturn come back into an opposition with your moon where money's going to feel a little tight in the new year. It's going to square Mercury and Pluto, and then you're going to break out of it. So you need faith, basically, or you need a practice, or you need a skill, or you need a mentor, or you need to be something that you're studying or that you're learning to kind of help you get to the next step before Saturn goes into your 10th house. So I look at this and I'm like, you're right on time. You're not supposed to have something emerge until March when you're coming out of your cocoon. I think Taurus in the 12th house is where we subconsciously get too comfortable, or we get lazy, or we oversleep, or we overeat, or anything that's just kind of dragging our feet, right? And we're getting a little too comfortable in our daily routine. You've got so many planets in the 6th house. You've also got Pluto that's coming into a square with your sun, and that's when you're being pushed to the edge of really communicating what it is that you need. So it's like, my goodness, so many squares and oppositions are basically saying, yes, it's time to get the show on the road. Libra's sun in the 5th is really finding pleasure through what it is that you create. And whether it's a business, a piece of art, a club, a game, a child, it doesn't matter. Like there's this breakthrough that's going on for you right now with Pluto square your sun to like get really serious about something you're passionate about. You have to follow that through. You've got an eclipse in opposition to your sun that's going to be in the spring, which is kind of prompting you to kind of become a part of a new group or a collective, which is going to support some of the professional things that you're doing. But with eclipses in the 12th house and a Mars retrograde in the 12th house, there are subconscious things that are going to come up. And I think it's about motor brain. I also think it's about not having that routine or practice or sense of training or skills that you need to be able to usher you into the next thing. So I look at this and I go, oh, wonderful time for a teacher, a guru, a program, something that's going to pop up that you might do during the Mars retrograde in your 12th house that's going to have you more spiritually connected and feeling like you have a sense of direction with where you're going. Really pay attention. Like rest and your dreams are so important. And watch when Mars comes into conjunction with your South Node at the end of the month, because you're going to lose momentum and you're going to lose steam a little bit. But it's starting to come into a trine with Saturn. So slow and steady wins the race. Keep your eyes on the prize for when Saturn goes into Pisces. This is going to be when you're really actually needing to show up and be like, and this is this new thing that I have, closer to the end of March, beginning of April of next year. Because Neptune is the ruler of your 8th house and you've got it located natally the ruler of your 10th house, you've got it located natally in the 8th. Making money off of art, exchanges, buying and reselling art, collaborating with spiritual practitioners or people who are into mysticism and metaphysics, that kind of stuff. So there's a brand new version of yourself that's getting ready to emerge. The question is are you buying other people's products and selling it? Are you thinking more about being able to represent artists? Is there a sense of you feeling like you need to create art and put that out? Be ready for what's coming in March, because that's when the beginning of the reveal is going to happen. And this whole period of time between now and then is like a working period before you're able to really emerge into this new kind of like persona that you're going to have in the spring. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Still wondering if we have Kayla. If we don't, I'm going to move to Melanie. Unfortunately, I don't have Kayla's info. Okay, so we've got Melanie, Tiffany, Amber. You guys are all on deck. All right, so let's pull Melanie, F. You're welcome, Katie. Good luck. I'm excited to see what Saturn does on your midheaven. Okay, so we have got, oh no, that's Michelle. Hold on a second. Katie, Melanie. There we go. Melanie. W, wrong person. Okay, so Melanie, also another Libra rising. So many of you guys, huh? January 25th, 74, and you're a Libra rising, Sun in Aquarius, and Moon in Scorpio. Melanie, thanks for your patience. Hope you're still here. Those of you guys who are like, it's getting late, you can always come back to this video if you need to. If you can't stay up or if you're getting sleepy, you can play this back and you'll be able to see this. Just take note of where I'm at now, because if you're still waiting, it's going to be right around, I think, like what, the 2.5 hour mark? Okay. So you got an eclipse that's coming in, that's going to be in your 8th house. It is exactly trining your north node in the 4th house. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's telling me that it's helping create change and transformation of joint resources, making it possible for you to have huge foundational shifts with your family, with your home, things like paying off mortgages, having joint resources, getting inheritances, dealing with taxes, things like that. But it's positive because trines are saying like we radically somehow quickly, shift something that's going on. Oh, hold on. That's not your chart. I want to make sure this is the right info. I have January 25th. Oh, 73, 74. Thank you. There's always one. Thank you. 1974. There we go. Glad you caught me before I went too far. Melanie. There you go. Thank you. There you go. Okay. So, correct? PM. Gotcha. Thank you. Libra rising, Sun in Aquarius, 5th house, Moon in Pisces. So still the eclipse is in your 8th house. This is forming a square to Mercury, which is the ruler of your 12th. And you got Mars retrograde in your 9th. Cool. Got it. Based off of the timing that I have in this chart, it's giving me a Libra rising. This is for Western astrology, so I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. Oh, maybe it was a time zone thing. Hold on. There's always one that does this. I apologize. Let's see. Here we go. 24 degrees Virgo rising. Thank you. Sun in Aquarius in the 5th house, Moon in Pisces in the 6th house. This should be correct. So eclipse in your 8th. It's on the cusp of your 9th, but it's still in your 8th. Square your Mercury, so that's your chart ruler. And it's very close to your Mars. Thank you. Okay, so an eclipse that's in your 8th house, obviously you've heard a lot of Libra risings at this point, change, transformation, joint resources, all that fun stuff. It's very close to your Mars, so it is bringing up this theme of like needing to really change and transform how you communicate, talking about resources. There can also be some stuff that's coming up in regards to contracts, difficult conversations, things that involve neighbors, vehicles, or siblings, because Mars rules your 3rd house. The eclipse square Mercury is really kind of what's most, I think, tricky about this chart. The fact that it's squaring your chart ruler and you've got Mercury in the 5th house. So it's like, where is it where you're giving to other people? Is there a fair exchange, right? What are you getting back? Physically, emotionally, energetically, financially? Like, is this a fair exchange? That's the question that I would be asking myself right now. Some people would look at this chart and go, are you having challenges with intimacy with other people? Are you having issues in regards to joint resources and children? Definitely not a time to take any risks with the stock market, because I think that investments or just putting money into a lottery or a slot machine or anything like that, that's a no-go with the eclipse squaring Mercury in the 5th. You may feel naturally a little bit more kind of Saturnian, and it might be okay for you because you have so many planets in Aquarius, but you might be kind of like, I'm not having any fun, or why am I having to work hard to have so much fun, or like, why am I not feeling the love? Like, the 5th house is the love that you give yourself, okay? It's taking yourself out on a date. It's playing a game with yourself, going out and creating something, going to a party, like something that you enjoy. So it's about finding joy in the midst of what can feel like a lot of work. You know, a lot of Libra risings have just been working their butt off with Saturn in their 5th house and feeling like it's just a labor of love. And this can be the breakthrough where you're finally like, I'm not getting enough out of this. Like, it's not enough to justify for me to keep doing it. I'm really kind of over it. If it's not bringing me joy, I'm going to cut it loose. And that can be a person, a situation, a hobby, something financially. So that's what you really want to watch for. And like I said, it's really close to your Mars. So I also wonder, like, does this have to do with intimacy with another person? Like, are you feeling like you have to kind of lay out the groundwork and be like, hey, this ain't working for me. Like, I need more from you, right? The eclipse also is a part of a chapter of things that have been kind of changing and transforming or suddenly ending really for you since the spring. So if you go back to like April, May, and you think about the seeds that were planted, you had an eclipse very close to your Mars. So to me, it looks like you're embracing this idea of what does it mean to end something? And, you know, just because something ends, does it mean that it's really over? And how does it affect you emotionally, financially, or psychologically by there being an ending? Oh, and by the way, Pluto is getting really close to your Venus, and it's squaring your natal Uranus still. So that tells me that you're learning that there are healthy and unhealthy exchanges that you have with lovers, with friends, with your coworkers. And finally, that's kind of wrapping up. But for the most part, I think this is really kind of shining a light on, you know, who or what is worth taking risks on and who isn't. And if it's not making you happy, this is for all Libra risings, but especially for you, if it's not bringing you joy, then you got to cut it loose. And if that means you have to have some difficult conversations with somebody about, you know, what isn't making you happy, have it, because honesty with yourself is so important when you have eclipses in your 8th house. Like, one way or another, the truth's going to come out. So you might as well just have that conversation now rather than letting it go longer into Aquarius season next year or Taurus season next year. It's going to be harder to break some of these old patterns of what can be sometimes people pleasing or going along with things because you just want people to, you know, get along and be happy. Like Sun in the 5th house, Venus in the 5th house, Mercury in the 5th house. I'm giving you like the okay to basically be like, this is different, it's unusual, but I like it, this makes me happy, and like not allow yourself to get kind of miffed by other people challenging that or not agreeing with that. And you have to have fun, you have to have playtime. And I would say, like, make time to do that this week. And you might find that the breakthrough and the benefit is the fulfillment that you get emotionally or physically or in terms of your sex life. It doesn't necessarily have to be finances. But sometimes an eclipse square Mercury and Jupiter, it can be you speak out and you get exactly what you ask for. It's like, you know, rubbing the magic lamp and the genie pops out and goes, sure, okay, all you had to do was ask. So you may find that in some of the tension this week, you say something and somebody goes, oh yeah, just, you know, you should have just told me. And you're like, what? So speak up, say something, you know, talk about how you're feeling and get out with it, you know. But obviously 8th house stuff, taxes, you know, inheritance, people dying, you know, dealing with, you know, what you pay people and what you get. So for some Virgo risings and Libra risings, it's I'm cutting my insurance, or like my boyfriend sucks, or like this doesn't feel good anymore, or, you know, I'm sick of hiding my true nature. So these things are going to start kind of rising up inside of you, especially like sexual and financial things, because it's getting so close to your Mars in the 8th house. Hopefully it's good for you. Good luck, Melanie. I'm excited to see how that manifests. We've got Tiffany Amber. Tiffany, I did not get your info, or maybe I did, but it's way down there. So if you can send that to me, or if we have it in the chat, that would be helpful. I've got Amber, chakra healing, Catherine, Coltrane, Kimberly, Imarama, Crystal again, and Iris. So if we can get Tiffany, if you want to bounce back and give me your info, that'd be helpful. Otherwise, I've got Amber and chakra healing up next. Somebody said, how do you stay hydrated? I was just asking myself mentally the same question, so I'm going to take a sip of water. I can talk forever. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. These eclipses are always long ones. All right, so let's take Amber. Putting question marks next to the people that I've missed. Amber. Amber. She says 6:26:82 at 11:28 p.m. What can I expect from this eclipse? Is there anything that stands out? All right, so you are a Pisces rising, sun in Cancer, and your moon is in Virgo. You got an eclipse that's taking place, obviously in Taurus. You know, no big deal. It's just on the most southern part of your chart. It's on your IC. Or excuse me, I take that back. It is on the cusp of your third house. It looked like the IC from the angle, but it's not. But still, actually, I have a feeling there's something connected here because you've got an eclipse right on the cusp of your third house, which can be indications of changes with finances or movement, communicating in a different way, vehicles. And you've got Mars going retrograde in your fourth. So I feel like there's something connected here between the two. For those of you guys who are just getting into astrology, moves is the third, the physical home is the fourth. But for there to be an eclipse that's right smack dab in the third house, the beginning of the third house, and Mars retrograde in your fourth, are you changing homes? Are you moving? Are you thinking about going somewhere new? You know, was there something that came up with like a vehicle or with a sibling? These are things that happen with this house. Unexpectedly, I should add, because Uranus is technically the whole sign ruler of your 12th, and it's intercepted, so you don't really see these things coming. But yeah, an eclipse in the third house, contracts, movement, communications, making plans with siblings, short distance travel. You know, this eclipse isn't terrible in your chart. I mean, it's making a trine to your south node, so it's about releasing and letting something go. And it's also making a trine to your moon. So I'm wondering if this is about your relationship that you have to a coworker, a family member, a sibling, an aunt, an uncle, maybe some back and forth opposition because the moon is involved where you're having to kind of hash something out with a relative. It can also be that you're going back and forth with a partner about making decisions about where you're planning on living or where you're planning on traveling to because of that trine to the moon in the 7th house. So it makes me kind of put the pieces together and look at this and go like, what's getting ready to emerge in the new year when Saturn hits your ascendant? You're wanting to commit to something more serious, or you're wanting to make a pretty dramatic kind of life change. So eclipses in the third house in Taurus, they sextile Pisces. So even though Pisces 1 degree, not exactly the sextile that we would want to see, but by sign, it's supporting Pisces vision. So Taurus says, okay, let's start working towards that. Let's start putting the pieces together for that move or creating that contract or having that conversation. And it can be about money, you know, because Taurus is about resources. It's the square to Saturn where perhaps maybe you're feeling like there's a delay or it's hard for you to see the forest through the trees. You might feel a little thwarted in terms of being able to move forward with some of these plans during the eclipse, but it's bringing you back to the negotiation table and basically being like, okay, so we had a hurdle, we had a bump. What can we do to kind of overcome this? Like, what's the next step, right? And I would say work with that energy to try to find a way to renegotiate something or maybe delay what might be a trip or buying a car or a move. You'll find that Mercury will retrograde over these degrees. This is for everybody, okay? Mercury will retrograde over these very degrees next spring, the end of April going into May. So when that happens for you, because Mercury rules your 7th, if you delay some of this stuff, you guys might look around and go, well, thank God we waited, now's a better time, right? Or maybe you do something temporary before you make more permanent decisions next spring. It just depends on your situation. But I'm like, oh boy, you got Mars going retrograde over your Mercury. A partner might be like, I want to move, I want out of this place. And you're like, we're not ready yet. Or like the house isn't ready, or we don't know where we're going. Like there's a need to really renegotiate everything right now. Mars in opposition to Neptune too. So you're like, there's so much disturbance or unpredictability or inconsistency or conflict within the home base that you're like kind of being thrown for a loop. Mars opposed Neptune square your moon. Where you're pivoting and shifting direction with where you're going with your relationships and your living situation. So probably because Uranus is sudden, there's an opportunity for a sudden, like, I got to think on my feet, we got to move. Or we got to go, you know, do something temporary. We got to get out for a short period of time or stay with family or do this and that until we can kind of reacclimate and figure out what we're doing in the spring type of vibe, you know? So yeah, having to kind of think on your feet, learning how to kind of communicate, but work with the trines to your moon and the trines to the south node. And that tells me that it's about being willing to make sacrifices. And if something doesn't pan out, like trying to negotiate and find the middle ground with other people as you go through some of these changes. And personally, the Mars retrograde for Pisces rising, any other Pisces risings who are listening, Mars rules money, okay? It's squaring Jupiter and Neptune in your first house. So there can be a sense of being too overly optimistic that everything's just going to work out and taking chances. Try to make temporary moves or hold off on moving until some of these planets go direct, because not everything might pan out exactly the way that your vision says. And you may be a little too overly optimistic about what stuff can be, and then you're like, oh, I don't really like the results. So at least wait until Mars goes retrograde and it trines Saturn again within the next month or so, okay? Good luck, Amber. Okay, so we have got chakra healing. All right. Thanks for your patience. You are a, let's see, September 24th, 1988, 12:53 a.m. Cancer rising, Sun in Libra, and your moon is in Pisces. Thanks for your patience. I appreciate it. Current relationship status is complicated in long distance. How will it affect my chart love connection? Will it deepen the relationship? So we're talking about the eclipses, but this will tie in a way because you have eclipses in your 5th house and in your 11th. So relationships are Saturn, because Saturn rules your 7th house. And something you've been dealing with for 2 years is Saturn's been in your 8th house, limitation of intimacy, not always being able to physically connect, really having to go deeper in terms of the connection with partners. And Saturn's been in a square with Uranus. So it's like a lot of complicated stuff, back and forth, off and on, you know, going through periods of having someone, not knowing if it's a relationship, could it be something more, that kind of stuff. So this is like grand finale because this eclipse is going to square Saturn. I think that the eclipse is not helping relationships because it does seem to kind of bring up this theme that's like, is there something here, or are we better off being friends? And that doesn't mean the relationship has to end, okay? That's not what I'm saying. But there is this sense of being like, is there enough passion, you know, intimacy, togetherness, because it's all being squared by all these Scorpio planets in the 5th, where you're really feeling like you need love, or you really feel like you need togetherness, and it would be better to be able to physically be with them, be intimate, go on dates, do all of that stuff, right? I know relationships in general, but really with this chart. So throughout this next couple weeks, you're going to feel this kind of like, man, I really need that. And the North Node eclipses in your 11th house is like, where can you have companionship outside of a romantic relationship, and where you're going deeper into going and being able to participate more with friends. The catch, and there is a catch here, is that Uranus eclipses in the 11th are going to present you with sudden opportunities to have flings and physical connections with friends. And it challenges where your heart might actually be with planets in your natal 5th house. So it's like, I have this relationship, it's complicated, I love them, but I need affection. I have opportunities to go out with people, it's no strings attached, but do I want that? You know, and Saturn going through the 8th house is sometimes practicing abstinence, believe it or not. So the eclipse doesn't really help in that sense. I could see like the Mercury retrograde, because Mercury is the ruler of your 3rd of conversations and movement and where you're living. Christmas into the new year, it'll go retrograde in your 7th house, and it's going to make sextiles to Pluto, and it's also going to make some positive aspects to your moon, which rules your chart, which is like, where are we going? What are we doing here? You know, are we really going to do this? If we are, you know, what does this mean? Are we going to be living together? Like, what sacrifices are we making for the home life? And you'll hear as a Libra, Saturn square Uranus is like, you know, where you're dating versus where you're living, and whether or not you're having enough fun. So both kind of coexist. I think that you're going to see more open up when Saturn gets out of this square with Uranus. So as you get into the new year, Saturn's going to start coming into Pisces, and it's going to start trining Pluto, which is like, well, could we get married? Is that on the agenda? Like, are we having this togetherness? Like, I personally think Saturn conjunct your moon in the North Node might be a ceremony because it's ruled by Neptune, and you have Neptune at a 7. So it's like making the changes that need to be made and talking about the future. So you're actively making these changes as we go into the new year, so you can feel like you're building a life together, right? But it may take until you come out of the fog of the Mercury retrograde in January to make that happen. I think eclipses in the 11th square Saturn in the 8th is talking about your goals and being willing to be vulnerable and opening up and talking more about like what could be. Saturn's only going to get up to about, I think 7 or 8 degrees of Pisces next year. So that conjunction wouldn't be until like the beginning of 2024 or the spring of 2024. But you'd have to look at, you know, your solar return and your progressions. It could be sooner. We'd have to look at that across the board. But just in general, Saturn, which rules marriage in your chart, hits the moon, which is you in the 9th house. You're basically going to see that there's opportunities for serious commitments or marriage in 2024. But the eclipses right now are sextiling your north node and your moon. So it's kind of saying, what could we build? Where could we go? And if you have somebody who is a Sag rising, Mars retrograde through the 7th square, Neptune in the 4th is like, I don't see a way forward if we're not building a life together, right? And I think the Mars retrograde is you lighting a fire under them, trying to talk to them more about what you're creating in the future. And then Jupiter going into the 5th, which is about really genuinely falling in love, being together, and talking about building a life together. So use this eclipse to look for companionship outside of the romantic relationship, spending time with friends, doing that stuff, but also being so secure and so locked into what your goals are that you're willing to talk about the uncomfortable things and opening up about stuff that, oh, Scorpio rising, okay, even better, Saturn square Uranus. So it's about merger. And a lot of Scorpio risings with the Saturn-Uranus square are going to suddenly decide to move to be in a relationship. So actually it works even more in your favor. But be committed to these goals with the eclipse in your 11th house. And yeah, you're going to have to talk about money. So it's going to be like, who moves? How much money do you have saved? Are you quitting your job? Do you live with me? How do we pay for things? Like, these are things you're going to have to talk about with the squares of Saturn in the 8th house and the give and the take. And if somebody's willing to make the move, what you're putting up to basically be able to kind of facilitate making this shift happen. And then Saturn will come out of an opposition with your Venus. So everything is going to like open up and unlock. But man, an eclipse that's square your Venus, square Saturn in your 11th house, like it's all about the goals. And also talking to your friends about some of the changes that are coming. You know what I'm saying? In terms of being able to really kind of plan for the future in general. It looks quite positive, but that square is, I think, more telling your friends what's going to happen, and maybe the beginning process of also starting to integrate them more, you know, having him meet them and vice versa. So he feels like maybe he has a sense of familiarity and community for when he does move, if that makes sense. You know? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Really exciting stuff. Really exciting, especially just seeing finally Saturn coming out of an opposition with your Venus, like career and also home life is going to open up like big time after that opposition. You're welcome. We have got Catherine, Coltrane, Kimberly. We are coming down to the end of my list. So let's see if Catherine, are you here? Catherine W. The opposition of what? The eclipse is going to highlight Saturn in opposition to your Venus. You're wrapping it up. It's been a year, so you're coming out of it now. Come the new year, you're done. Thanks for waiting, Catherine. I've got you here April 24th, 89. And that was 8:24 p.m. So you're a Scorpio rising, Sun in Taurus, and your moon is in Sagittarius. What to expect with the upcoming eclipse in your 7th? Believe it or not, you are the first one to truly have it in your 7th house. We've had some Libra risings. We've had some, I don't even know if we had a Sag rising, but you're the first Scorpio rising that I've gotten to talk to, which is mind-blowing after doing readings for 3 hours. So cool. All right, so an eclipse in your 7th house. What does it mean? The good news is that you have already had one of these. So I want you to think back to what happened around the 3rd week of November of 2021. Okay, it was like the 13th through the 20th, that week. You had an eclipse there. Now that was an eclipse in the late degrees of Taurus, so it was really close to your Mercury, and it was square Jupiter that was in your 4th. So it was a lot of positivity, what the future could hold, you know, what could be expanding with relationships, what could be expanding with home. Now you've got an eclipse that is a full moon lunar eclipse, so it's a completion of what intentions you've been planting since this spring. The difference is that unlike last fall, where it was square Jupiter, everything is really positive and optimistic, Now it's square Saturn, which is we've made commitments to the family or we've made commitments to the relationship. Now we have to see them through, which feels kind of uncomfortable. So basically, you know, you've got Uranus in your 7th house, wild changes and transformations with partners, them needing a little bit more freedom, authenticity, you name it. And then the square to Saturn in your 4th house is about home and your family relationships or relationships with your home, property stuff. Believe it or not, those of you guys who are still learning about housing stuff and like how certain houses can represent different things, the 4th house is 10 houses from the 7th. So the 4th house actually relates to the karma of your marriage or the karma of your family, depending on how you look at it. Okay, so 2021, moving from casual to committed relationship. All right. So welcome to the Thunderdome. This is what you see what relationships are really made of. Thankfully, you've had Saturn Uranus kind of going back and forth. So you already are kind of like, okay, I went 0 to 60. Now I'm committed. But I personally believe that 7th house eclipses don't really have to do with you. It's going to be with other people. So you want to look at your partner. What's going on with your partner right now? The 7th house is their physical body. The square to Saturn in the 4th house is about the karma relating to your relationship, your physical home or work. So if you guys live together and if they're working from home, it can be stress. If this is about talking about the next steps in the relationship, it is possible that that could manifest in a positive sense. But it's not really about you, it's about other people. That eclipse that we had was pretty much smack dab on your sun, the solar eclipse. So sometimes a solar eclipse is planting the seed to bring somebody in. So you have brought them in since these eclipses over the last 2 years. Now you guys are together and it's going to square Saturn. It's kind of like, are we doing this or what? You know, are we talking about moving in together? Am I coming to your house for the holidays? Are you meeting my mom? Are we talking about, you know, the future in marriage? Like a lunar eclipse in the 7th house can be definitively thinking more about the future of the relationship. The challenge is either family, domestic stuff, or where you're living, and overcoming that. But you know, the eclipse is still very, very close to your Mercury-Venus midpoint, which means together we can talk about anything, we can work through anything. It's going to trine your natal Saturn in your 3rd, which I think is about having conversations and possibly moving. So many Scorpio risings, because Saturn's in the 4th and Uranus is in the 7th, you're realizing you have to upend the past, detach from what your relationships have been, detach from your family karma, think more about, you know, creating a new home base with a new person and like what you guys could do in the future. This is only kind of furthering some of the decisions that you guys have been making really for the last year. As you move forward, right? You know, sometimes definitive decisions happen here. So sometimes we do have makeups, but sometimes we also have breakthroughs. So I don't really have the same perspective as everyone. I think if you had some squares to Pluto, I would be concerned, but I'm not seeing that. So it can be about you guys having conversations about the future for the most part. And that eclipse is going to be in opposition to Pluto. So my advice to you, I'm a Scorpio. I got tons of planets in Scorpio, so I say this lovingly. Pluto in your 1st house, Scorpio rising, lay your weapons down. Not being defensive, letting go of fear, letting go of your armor, anything that's kind of like, ooh, I'm scared, like I don't want to do that. Jupiter's going to hit your sun, girl. It's also going to go into your 7th house. I mean, you're going to be blown away with like how serious things potentially could get April, May, June of next year. And to me, it does look like talking about, you know, being together or getting married or having kids or things like that, because Jupiter rules your 5th house. So it's better to get the show on the road and start talking about where you see the relationship going or your life going so you can get on the path, or you can have conversations about whether or not it's no longer working. But the eclipse really isn't so much about you. It's about other people. And my God, you have so many planets in Taurus in your 7th house. You're probably sick of being like, oh my God, I got to deal with somebody's shit all the time. But you know, Jupiter going in the 7th house means that you're going to share a lot of wealth and abundance with another person next year. The happiness, traveling, you know, partnership, all that stuff. He's meeting my parents in a few weeks. Our leases end in January at the same time. Girl, time to move in and get wifed up. 7th house Taurus. Usually there's a lot of resistance when you have a Sag moon though. And because you've had to go through the Uranus oppositions in your 7th house, there is a lot of things wildly changing before somebody comes in and you can kind of settle. Look for those conversations spring of next year. You got eclipses that are going to be taking place still in your 7th and Jupiter that's going to hang out in your 5th. So watch out for babies. Watch out for babies. Good luck. Things will get better. Don't worry. The North Node of Jupiter in your 7th is really wonderful. Coltrane, Kimberly, Emeroma crystals, and then Iris. Then we are done. All right, so we've got Coltrane. What's up, my guy? You're back. Financial relationship changes should you expect with the eclipses? You need to leave your job. Not feasible to stay with very little pay. I know you said love is prominent, but it seems relationships just come and go. Nothing is permanent. Everything seems temporary. I'm scared to make such a big leap. Well, the eclipse is very close to your ascendant. It's still in the 12th house, but it's very close to your ascendant. And relationships become more so prominent when you're getting into the later part of a Scorpio season. So this is going to be second half of November into December. So not quite yet. Personally, you know, the eclipse happening on your ascendant conjunct Uranus is like, holy cow. You're going to feel like a nervous little stress ball. You know, I've talked to a couple of Taurus risings today and everybody's just like, I just can't sit still. This is happening. I'm feeling the changes. And I'm like, relax, no stimulants, no coffee, no nicotine, no sugar. Like, just ground your energy. Like, you need to literally go and put your feet in the dirt. You're a Taurus rising. That's really going to help you through this process. I think the other thing is that this is in an exact square to Mercury, which is your mind and your nervous system, and it is the ruler of your 5th house. So your mind is on creativity, growth in terms of your expression, being able to be more authentic with performing and music and all of that stuff. Like, it's going to break through and you're going to be like, I can't take it anymore. I got to do my own thing. Nobody's saying you got to make the jump now. Like, you're actually just starting to come into your final Saturn return. So it looks like you've had 3 Saturn returns. The first one, the second one when it retrograded, and the third one's coming up. And the third one is the one that really matters. 12:05 a.m. Oh, is that me or you? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've got you. I appreciate you catching it early. 12:05 a.m. There we go. Oops, that's just your regular chart. Hold on. There we go. Okay, 12:05 a.m., January 31st, 93. Yeah. 0 degree Scorpio rising. So you've got technically the eclipse that is happening in your 7th. So yeah, okay, there we go. You got it. So second Scorpio rising, eclipse in your 7th house. So it is about partnerships and relationships, but it's not just all romantic, okay? It's like people you collaborate with, people you make music with, people you make money with. It's not limited to just romantic relationships, although Venus does rule that into your 5th. Who do you make art with? Who do you make love to? That kind of stuff. I think that the eclipse in your 7th conjunct your moon tells me that you're going to feel a little emotionally all over the place. I mean, the truth is like I've said with the previous Scorpio rising chart, especially if you have Taurus placements, like there is stability coming. Okay, an eclipse conjunct your moon is going to send you into a bit of a tailspin. You might suddenly have a mentor, a teacher, a guru, somebody come in who can kind of help guide you. That's something that I would look for. It can be a woman. And also it's going to be about finding stability in regards to relationships with others that can help bring more stability. So I think of like managers, representatives for your, creative and your artistic talent. Like if you don't have rep or if you're looking for that, this eclipse can bring that in as well. Obviously the eclipse is squaring, like I said, Saturn, and it's squaring your Mercury also. So there's a sense of like needing to dig deep and go, what are my goals? Who do I need to align with to facilitate and make this happen? Scorpio risings in general, like all of you guys are going to benefit from having a support system. So I don't care if you have an astrologer, if you have a husband, a boyfriend, a business partner, a manager, like all of you guys need somebody else. You can't do it by yourself. That's what you're going to learn throughout these transits. Look at what's happened over the last 2 years. You know, you were planting seeds in spring. There was opportunity to physically connect with people. And now you're seeing that kind of maturation process happen over the last 6 months. And now it's finalizing now and it's squaring Saturn. If you're like, it's not about relationships, I'm kind of dealing with fear, then the squares to your Sun, Mercury, and Saturn is about getting out of the past. You know, the fourth house is the past. What's happened in past relationships, what's happened in your family. A lot of people who have Saturn in Aquarius or Uranus in the fourth house or all kinds of conjunctions in the fourth house, they come from families where there was conflict or separation or divorce, or there was something that was not quote unquote normal, especially because you have Moon square Saturn. So there's been this sense of being like, I like relationships, don't really want to rely on somebody. I'm not really great at being emotionally available, don't always want to share my feelings. It's easier for me to stay in my lane and kind of have the peace and quiet of my own and not complicating things with other people. But guess what? When your moon's in the seventh house, you are going to have so many people come into your life that are going to ask you if you want to participate in relationships, that it's helping you grow and get out of your shell. Moon is exalted in Taurus. Venus is in opposition. You've got an eclipse with Venus on your ascendant. It's got like this gravitational pull that's pulling other people into your life and bringing really significant relationships in. That might feel uncomfortable, right? It might feel uncomfortable asking for help or talking about collaborating with somebody or asking somebody, hey, do you want to make music together? Hey, do you want to go out to dinner? Or can I pick your brain and can we talk about, you know, where you're going with things? Yeah. Fear of rejection is the Moon square Saturn. So I would say, you know, with Jupiter on your Venus, oh my gosh, with Neptune coming into conjunction with your Venus, there is something that's getting ready to emerge that makes me feel like it's like muse energy. And it can be that you just make really great music or really great art with somebody, but it can be somebody who comes into your life that really inspires you. Part of what you're learning with Saturn square your moon is that it doesn't always have to be that way. You know, Moon in Taurus in the 7th means you need somebody peaceful, grounded, somebody who doesn't need drama, who understands that you come with a past, but you can't let the past kind of run the show, right? Especially because you have all these planets in opposition to Chiron. So career challenges, family challenges, issues with relationships, not wanting to have to explain everything to somebody. You're going to be really glad when Saturn gets out of Aquarius and it's no longer squaring your Pluto and it's no longer squaring your Chiron. It's going to take a little bit of time, you know, that square starts to kind of ease up right around February going into March. And then Saturn's going to go into Pisces, and then you're going to have like a shift that's going to happen where you're going to be like, this is what I want to create. This is how I really feel. I'm putting it out there. And then Jupiter is going to go into your 7th house. So collaboration is a thing. Writing music with other people, performing with other people, writing music for other people. That might be something else that's going to be happening. And, you know, like I said, there is a muse coming. Uranus is going to be in your 7th house, and then Saturn moves into your whole sign 5th. So it's about falling in love with something, expressing your feelings, and you're going to feel that it's worth the vulnerability and opening up to another person in the spring. But right now you're deep in your Saturn stuff. And to me, that seems like you need to get your emotions and you need to get your home right. And you need to kind of cut ties with the past, because it's saying to you that you've got people who want to come in, but you're getting a little too comfortable staying at home or staying in your safe space. I have a ton of planets. I have a stellium of planets in Capricorn in my 4th. Super Saturnian, but when you have a ton of planets in your 4th house, it acts more like Cancer. So you don't forget the past. You don't let things go. You can't forget. You're like haunted by things. And the more that you're fixating on it and the more that you're reflecting on what's happened in the past and staying home, it's going to come and it's going to creep up on you. So it's trying with Uranus in the 7th house to get you out of your home, participate with other people, going out and meeting people or creating with others, so that way you don't get stuck in that pattern. So the eclipse may have a delayed effect for you, my friend. You might find that it might catch you off guard and not much happens for you personally, but it might actually start kicking up some dust right around February when planets go into Aquarius and they square Uranus, and it's bringing up this theme of, now you really do have to, you know, cut ties with the past, or you really do have to make a change in your living situation, and everything's going to kind of cycle out. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful. Come back. Let me know what happens with that eclipse, because it's a really interesting one, really close to your moon. If you know how to look at your lunar returns, I would say look at your lunar return, or just pay attention to what happens for the immediate next few days. So I think the eclipse is on the 8th. So look at like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the things that happen at that period, it's going to continue to keep playing out for the next month. It'll be really obvious what the theme is. Okay, so we've got Kimberly, Emarama, and Iris. Let's see what Kimberly says, and I need to triple check because obviously my eyes are getting tired. The date and make sure this is correct. I've got you October 30th, 1973, 9:26 a.m. in Jacksonville. So you're a Sag rising, a moon in Sag, and a sun in Scorpio. Ooh, girl, you got that eclipse that happened really close to your sun. Now you've got an eclipse that is happening in opposition to your sun. You are one of those Scorpios who's getting hit both ways, huh? You and me both. So the eclipse is in Taurus, and that is going to be happening for you in your natal 5th house. For Sag rising, you're going to hear whole sign it's your 6th, so it's about scheduling and health and work and pets maybe, but technically it's happening in your 5th house, so that's a little bit easier energy. Taking chances, having fun, things in regards to children, dating, pleasure, that kind of stuff. The challenge is that it is in a square to Saturn, and Saturn is hanging out in the 3rd house. How you communicate and express your feelings, how you talk to a romantic partner, how you talk to your children. If you are making time for playful banter and taking time off and going on road trips and having a good time. The eclipse in the 5th house is completing matters of the heart, but it's in a square to the 3rd. So expressing how you feel and not botching the words, having heart-to-heart conversations, possibly talking to somebody about how you really feel, important emails and messages and phone calls and things that can come in as well. You know, Sagittarius and Taurus don't mesh well. It's like that's one of the 2 signs that create an inconjunct to you. So it's both Taurus and Cancer that you don't get on well with. And it kind of rubs you the wrong way. So having eclipse in Taurus, it's inconjuncting your ascendant. It's also inconjuncting your Venus. So it tells me that you're realizing you need to incorporate more time for play or pleasure or dating or art into your daily routine. So, you know, things don't necessarily kind of get off track, if that makes sense. And I think that the eclipse, you know, making some of the aspects that it's making, like the opposition to your sun, is relational. So I'm wondering, who is the person that you're going back and forth with? Is it a younger person? Is it a friend? Is it a romantic partner? Oppositions are always relational. So you'll hear as a Scorpio, like, oh, the eclipse is in your 7th house, or something going on with love life. Well, maybe, but it's in your 5th house. So if you have kids, it can be the relationship with your kids. If you've got a younger lover or romantic partner, maybe it could mean that you go out on a sexy romantic date and you're like, wow, this is like a thing. But being that it's in conjunct your Ascendant and in conjunct your Venus, I mean, I think it's about you learning how to adapt differently when it comes to dating and maybe your love life and making more time for fun, to be honest with you. I know you're curious about your love life, but it's pushing you out of your comfort zone. So I look at this and I'm like, where does it make sense with Uranus in your 5th house to be like, I'm going to go out to the bars this weekend. That's what the 5th house is. Or I'm going to go to a concert. I'm going to go to a show and like test my luck and see who I meet. I also feel like the eclipse in opposition to your sun is bringing up an opportunity to go somewhere. So you might say, okay, let's get out of town for the weekend. Let's plan something as a result of this eclipse. But the square to Mercury is saying, but oh, I got to get the car serviced, or I got to take time off work, or I got to talk to somebody about, being able to cover my shift. So it feels like a little disjointed, right? And in the midst of all this, Mars is going retrograde in your 7th. So if you haven't been dating, getting back in the dating game is a thing. Mars rules your 5th house, and it's about just going and being places where there's action and people having fun. So it's less about being like, I got to find somebody. It's more about being like, what do I enjoy? I'm going to go do that. And you might meet somebody in the process of doing that. So that 5th house Placidus eclipse really kind of makes sense to me. Pluto is also coming into a square with Mars as well. So you're going to realize that there's some kind of internal frustration revolving around whether or not you're really making time for sex and passion and kind of having fun. And you're feeling the need to go deeper into some of that stuff. Something that can be really wonderful also can be like dance, performance, being on stage, that kind of, these kinds of fifth house things, that's going to bring out the drama and like the theatrics of it all. That's going to help you get more so in touch and in tune with being able to just have more freedom in your self-expression and also in your romantic life. And Jupiter is going to be going over some of these degrees also in the next year or two. So you're going to see Jupiter swing into your fifth house with Uranus. So it's really great for romantic relationships, to be honest with you. But right now it's getting out of your comfort zone. That seems to be the theme. And I like that it's also peppered in with the eclipses that you're having in Scorpio. So it's in your 11th house. Get out there, socialize, meet people. It's about interacting with people, not necessarily looking for a relationship per se. The real eclipses that are going to really show you some lively things is going to be the one starting in mid-April next year. You're going to have a solar eclipse in 29 degrees of Aries in your fifth house, trine your Venus. So you're going to find probably you're actively going on vacations and doing things and having fun and having more playtime April, May, June of next year. But right now it's like you got to go and figure out how you're going to meet some of these people. Use the Mars retrograde to your advantage. And you know, whether that's meeting somebody who lives in a different city, Mars in opposition to your Venus, or making more time in your daily routine to get out there and try to meet people and reconnecting to others with Mars retrograde in your 7th sextile, your natal Mars. Great time for Sagittarius risings to bring the love back into your life. Like that's very much a thing with that retrograde. Okay. Good luck. Make the time for it is my advice. Okay, so we have got 2 people that slipped in here. We've got another one for Imarama. I'm going to assume this is for you. I don't have your first name, so I'm going to put Crystal Collective. Those of you guys who are just tuning in, you're kind of getting me towards the end of my stream. So every Saturday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, I do live readings by donation. So I usually put the link out early. You can sign up, put in all your information so you can actually get a reading. So I'm here every Saturday. Next Saturday is tarot, 2 weeks from now on the, what will that be? The 19th? Yeah, I guess so. We're going to be doing Astro again. So that way you guys can come back. If you're wanting to know what the eclipse is going to do, I have an eclipse video on my channel. So it's Lunar Eclipse in Taurus. Maybe we can get a link and we can post it in the chat. I do over an hour. I talk about how it's going to affect all of the 12 signs. So if you missed a reading, check that out. You can still see what's going to happen for you. Okay. 7586. And that was 2:16 a.m. And that was in San Diego. And let me plug in also Iris. You guys are my last 2. Okay, August 13th, 87. $2:30 a.m. All right, so let's go to Crystal Collective. All right, so let's see. Okay, so live eclipse reading. Not sure what to ask. I feel stuck. I can't decide what to do in this life. I've been building my crystal shop, but I'm terrified to do Instagram live sales. I also do in-day trading in the market. I guess my question is, should I pursue launching my online crystal shop, or is it more auspicious to work on my day trading? I've been waiting forever for certain stocks in the oil industry to blow up. Good question. Looks like you got a Taurus rising. And your sun is in Cancer and your moon is in Gemini. So of course with Mars retrograde on your Mars, you're like, show me the money, especially oil, right? Mars, or things pertaining to that. When Mars goes retrograde and opposes Uranus, you're going to see something break one way or another. Just an inside tip. And that might really manifest right around November 27th through that full moon in Gemini, December 8th. So I know that's a rather wide window, but you'll see something pay off then. You're asking questions about, you know, your career in general, and I feel like this is very much Uranus and Taurus, where you're trying to do things differently, but you're also impatient, scoring Saturn in the 10th house, which is like what's more stable and consistent. So this eclipse that's coming in on your ascendant is like, I want to break free. I need a break. I need something different. Like, show me the money. And it's going to end conjunct Uranus in the 8th house, so it's important to be patient. I see more payouts coming for you end of November through December, honestly. You know, Aquarian, midheaven, 2 degrees. Pluto's going to come into conjunction. I don't think you're ever really going to give up the trading. Personally, I don't. And that's because, you know, Mercury is the dispositor of your moon in the second. You'll make money in 2 different ways, but I think you like the analytical portion of this. So it's really significant for you to be able to have options and to be able to go back and forth and like trade and like also have something else. Being that Saturn is coming into a trine with your moon, I think that that's really great for also starting to see some of the payoff come from the trading. But within 2 years' time, Pluto is going to come into conjunction with your midheaven in Aquarius at a 2, and likely you're going to jump from trading stocks and oils and this and that to like learning more about cryptocurrency, because Pluto is wealth, Aquarius is digital. And you're going to see the nodes come into a square with Pluto. So it's pushing you to make this change, which I think you're really segueing to more so in the spring. But I would advise you to be on the up and up and be learning while Mars is retrograde on your moon about the future of trading, what it looks like with cryptocurrencies, if there's conversions to digital dollars. Like, you got to know about this stuff because it's going to end up being really helpful for you in the future when you continue to keep doing trading. How you make money is Mercury, and you have Mercury in the 4th. So as long as you're working from home, working close to home, maybe reinvesting some of that money into property or real estate, you could be broadcasting from home. I mean, I can't tell you how many people really love those like live crystal events, and they'll make like bids on stuff. Like, part of me feels inclined to tell you, do it. And I'm going to tell you when to do it. Right after the new moon in Sagittarius, right around November 23rd. You're going to have Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury all coming into a trine with Mercury. Do it then. Wait till people are all like liquored up from Thanksgiving, having a good time and feeling like spending some money. Anytime right around that period will be really wonderful because it's a new moon phase. You're putting yourself in the 7th house of the public market. It's trining Mercury, the ruler of your second, and you're like, this is what I have for sale. Give it a shot, you know, but realize that it's also all going to be trining and making aspects to what will be Jupiter in Aries in the spring. So is it just an Instagram? Is it a Facebook group? Are you consistent with going live? Are you doing it with other people? Are other people kind of shouting you out and talking about what you're doing? Like, there's a need to establish relationships with other people in the process, you know? But because Uranus rules your 10th house of career, and you've got Uranus in the 8th in a fire sign in opposition to the moon, you don't want to show your face. You don't want to be on screens. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want to be seen. So you're like, I don't want to do this. And part of the Mars retrograde right now is overcoming that and being willing to do that and make money in a different way, right? But with Uranus in opposition to the moon, your feelings change and they kind of shift back and forth. Gemini about, I want to make money this way. I want to make money that way. So if you're bringing in residual income streams from both, you're never going to get bored, and you're going to be able to balance both of those. And the fact that Saturn's coming into a trine with the moon in the 2nd house is really significant for being able to sell physical goods like crystals on the airwaves, Gemini. So I feel like get the ball rolling with Saturn coming into the trine. Be willing to show your face, you know? You can create a new name, or you can create a new screen name or a new Instagram. You don't have to use your real name. You can go under an alias. And because you have Chiron conjunct your moon, you're afraid of, oh, what are people going to think? You know, I'm not communicating the right way. My face doesn't look the way I want it to look. I don't like the lighting. You know, like there's going to be like insecurities with the moon Gemini that's coming through. But I feel like if you have quality product, people aren't really going to care about what you look like. I know the internet can be like a horrific place. You're speaking to somebody who has really learned this a lot the last year. But learning to let that roll off your back and having the confidence in being like, I know what I'm doing, I have quality products, putting it out there is the best way to go, you know? And like, honestly, you're going to get to a point where you're going to start seeing, so many people are going to start seeing what you're doing. I've noticed this just with the growth of my channel, that it's like, maybe when there was like 1,000 followers, I would take comments personally. But now that there's so many more people who are coming in the lives and watching the videos and stuff, I see much more positive comments than I see negative comments. And the very few negative comments you'll see, you'll kind of let them roll off your back. So Mars retrograde can be doing things temporarily. So I feel like Mars ruling your 12th house is like, you got to find a room, you got to get decent lighting, you have to have a set, get everything ready, start feeling more confident being in front of a camera and showing what you have. You're never going to know if you can make money doing it until you give it a shot. And using astrology when it comes to your investments, because you have Uranus in opposition to the moon, and times that you go live is important. So I think that I would go and get an astrology calendar specifically that's going to give you when the moons are void. And I wouldn't be doing void moon periods, right? I remember when my progressed moon went through Gemini, I was like all over the place. Finally, it went into Cancer. But yeah, the void moons are what you want to avoid, and the evening hours or the early morning before the sun is rising is when you could do this. So I think probably the PM hours are better. So as Jupiter is getting ready to go into your 12th house in this next year, it'll start sextiling your moon. You can get to where you're doing these, you know, certain evenings or certain nights or Friday nights or whatever, where you come on the channel and you have stuff that you have to sell. You do the bids and then you're good, and then you can go, you know? But diversity is what you need. I think if I tell you, go sell crystals, your Gemini moon's gonna be like, I'm bored, you know? And you need the ability to go back and forth between two things. And Mars also rules your 7th house of like partners, you know? So it's about going back and forth with your partner and getting feedback from your partner about what you could be doing, how you guys are spending money, where you're scaling back on your spending, where you need more support from them, or just getting feedback from your audience about, you know, how your show is going or how your posts are going. So probably launch something when Mars is direct. Look to be doing that closer to at least after January 15th. And when you see Mars in a trine with Saturn, I think you're going to really be cooking with gas. So I would really recommend, trust me on this, try to do something around the 23rd, maybe 24th as an initial going live and showing what you got. I love those. Not a lot of people, from what I've seen, not a lot of people are doing those, at least on big scale. So keep in mind, you could be selling crystals, but then when you have so many people looking for stuff, then you're going to have to become a rock hound and you're going to go looking for things. Jupiter's going to sit on your ascendant with Uranus in the next 2 years. So it means you can have a lot of exposure. A lot of people could see you. You might develop a group. So don't just make it a social media, make it a Facebook group or something else. Maybe you have collective groups where you guys go out and you like look for crystals together, or you have like retreats, or you're doing crystal parties, or like, you know, you're making jewelry, because that's very Taurus as well. So it could be any combination of that. Yeah, watch for those void moons though. Use astrology for trading and for going live with your channel. Those of you guys who have an interest in an astrology calendar, I'm going to be putting it out very soon. I finally got the proofs back on my astrology calendar. So after the eclipse, I want to wait till after the eclipse. I'm going to post it on my website. I'll post it on my channel. If you don't already have my website, you can go to beyondtheveiltarot.com, sign up for my newsletter. I'm not going to spam you. You're only going to get emails when I have a product coming out. So Thanksgiving holiday weekend, we're going to put all my courses on sale. This will be for sale by then. We're doing Astro 201 signups. We're going to have all kinds of stuff. So if you want to know when that stuff's coming out, join my newsletter and you'll be alerted when it's available. But yeah, this is cool because I make crystal recommendations, ritual recommendations, incense, oils, like what rituals to do. And it has all of the eclipses, new moons, full moons, retrogrades, all of the major astrology for the entire year. That is in like a really pretty calendar. Real estate, yeah, but wait till after Mars goes retrograde on your moon and you guys have to come up with a way of being able to look at smaller properties. Think like condos, apartments, things that you can flip because it's Gemini. Last but not least, we have Iris. Okay, so she says August 13th, 87, 2:30 a.m. I work in big tech and wondering if transiting Saturn in my 10th house in March 2023 will play out. Okay, we'll talk about that, but we're talking about the eclipses. Thank you for waiting for so long. I'm not gonna write you off because you waited for so long. Ira, so obviously, technically, yes, transiting Saturn is by whole sign standards going to go into Pisces. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but Saturn won't fully go into your 10th house until 2024. Okay, so I look at Placidus, this is the real timing. Yes, when Saturn changes signs and it goes into the sign of your 12th house, your 10th house, excuse me, you're going to see the effects of your career start to shift. But I don't think you'll physically see those shifts and those transitions until 2024 when Saturn goes into your 10th house. Interesting topic though. Obviously, lots of question marks about your career because Mars is in your sign. So you're really eager to kind of get moving, but it's retrograding. So it tells me that for the next couple of months, you're turning inward. You're thinking more about what the future could be, what your goals are when it comes to your career, and it's in a square to Jupiter and Neptune. So there's like a lot of question marks like, will I be working in this country? Will I be in this business? Will I be in that business? What's it going to be? And your midheaven's at a 12. So it's more about your vision. So it's thinking about the vision or maybe working in a foreign country or in a different place. Still a good question though, because, you know, right now you have this eclipse coming in Taurus, which is in your 11th house. So it's about your goals. And what I like about this eclipse is that it's in a sextile to your midheaven. So it's basically saying, focus on your goals, focus on networking, focus on friends, people who you can collaborate with, being around people who are successful and going in the direction that they're going with, and like who you can kind of network with, who can kind of steer you in the direction of having more solid goals that are set and making connections with people in the profession that you're in. Now this eclipse, it's also making trines slightly to Neptune in your 7th. So it's relational, regards to friendships, stuff like that. You're a Leo, Leo's Venus, Sun, and Mars, and Mercury. So you have a lot of Leo in your chart. I think the Saturn opposition in your 9th is challenging, to be honest with you. It's like a lot of limitations with traveling or learning, publishing, education, law, legal stuff. I mean, just having one planet in Leo this year was enough, but you got a lot of personal planets there. So you've probably been feeling like for the last 2 years, there's like a lot of like pulling the bow and arrow back. And now that Saturn is going direct, once it comes out of an opposition with your Mars, you're going to realize that the delays were meant to kind of pull you back because you're being relaunched in a different direction. So it can mean that your perspective, your philosophy, your belief system when it comes to the direction of where your career is going has all changed. You've taken on new mentors, you've learned things, you've traveled places, and you've learned more about culture and stuff of that nature. Very 9th house. Yeah, it's like worth throwing a party, you know, in like February, March when Saturn comes out of this opposition. This isn't me keeping you from making big career moves, but I actually feel like what's going to happen is this eclipse is more so using energy in regards to manifesting and thinking more about your goals. When you get into the new year, when Jupiter is in Aries again, and it sits on your North Node, and then it sits on your moon, you're going to see that there's opportunity to make money in a new way. That's going to probably emerge right around maybe February, March. It could be in other cities or in other companies. Then you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be in your 10th house in April. Your 11th house in April, right on top of your Jupiter, ruler of the 10th. It's almost like you might meet somebody, network, make friends with somebody, tell them, oh, I'm looking for a big opportunity, I'm looking for a big breakthrough, you know, and then somebody calls you in April and goes, I want you to meet so-and-so, like they're looking for someone, I want to get you in there, I want you to talk to the boss, like I want you to work for this company. An eclipse on your Jupiter is like, amazing, because it involves both the moon and the sun, so it's having conversations about making more money, working with a group that you really enjoy being around, and there's going to be lots of opportunity for just having more freedom, Jupiter and Aries. So you have your Jupiter return next year, Saturn's going into your whole sign 10th, and you're having an eclipse on your Jupiter. Focus more networking and meeting people. Like focus on making friends with people in the industry and learning and socializing with them and connecting with them and going to networking events and probably meeting with a variation of different people socially. Aries means you're going to have to take the initiative to go and like kind of put yourself in those positions. What's cool is that this eclipse is technically in your 11th house. So what it's doing for you is it's getting the ball rolling now, but it can be working with people who might be international, right? Or it might be people who are, you meet on the internet and then they're saying, oh, we're going to have like a gathering or a get together or seminar or whatever in this city. Come. You got to go and you got to do that stuff. So more so in the spring, that's when it's going to start showing up. You're kind of hermity right now because Mars is retrograde, so I'm going to give you a bit of a break. But when Mars goes direct and it sits on your ascendant, after months of strategizing, talking to people, planning, you got to get active March, April, May. You got to go places and you got to do things. That's part of what's going to happen. Really, really, really exciting stuff though in the spring. I mean, usually North Node moving into the 10th house, Saturn moving into the 10th house, a Jupiter return, especially if Jupiter is the 10th house, that's when I see career expansion happen. All of this is happening at the same time. And Jupiter does rule your relationship. So I see you're asking if travel is related to your boyfriend. Jupiter return can be traveling and doing things with a boyfriend, but it can also be friends that you make that might be his, or people who he introduces you, or vice versa. But 11th house is other people having fun. So he might say to you, let's go on a trip in April. And you'll be like, okay, yeah, let's go. But you might meet other people in the process, you know? But yeah, that eclipse for you is more so relating to your 12th house, releasing any fears or anything in regards to big dreams, big goals. And I would say start socializing with new groups of people. That's what's going to help you really be able to move forward. Okay. Wow, guys, that was a long one. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. I know that we've got a refund that I have to do for one person, and we did not see Kayla and we did not see Tiffany. So I will refund you guys. You guys can come back and can join me on Saturday next week, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. It'll be tarot, and we have a new video coming out tomorrow. It's going to be just touching on the astrology for the week. If you haven't already seen the Lunar Eclipse and Taurus video, go check it out. I also have horoscopes that are out for the month of November. So if you guys want to check that out, you can. Please comment or give me a thumbs up or something. It's really helpful for the algorithm. It really helps the channel grow. I've said this a couple times, but it's my birthday on the 11th. I'm trying to reach my goal of hitting 10,000 subscribers. Hopefully, I said by the end of the year, but it might happen for my birthday. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do, or send it to somebody who would be interested in watching this channel and helping me reach my goal of 10K. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your Saturday night. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all very soon. Take care.